they receive, distributed according to their proportion of the previous vote in the previous election. But I'm talking about political party funders. So here's the question. What are your thoughts about the influence of party political funders on political parties and therefore on their policy and therefore effectively on what happens in a country? If you have strong views on it, you tell me. Beyond that, as always, what's your thoughts on the national pulse? What's your national pulse feeling like? You tell me. I want to tell you one other thing before I get to my guests that we're going to go first up to. Right? Today, of course, is the 23rd fast in the month of Ramadan. Now, I certainly fast. And someone asked me, like, how you managing? And it got me thinking about another thing, which is how do you manage, not spiritually, but how do you manage working? So for me, two things are particularly important before I start fasting, which is in Joburg at 5 o'clock, okay? I must have water, lots of water, and I must have my inhaler, my asthma inhaler, because I'm asthmatic. And that's particularly important because in the course of a day, you get weaker and your chest gets tighter. And if you're drinking water in the course of a day, you're obviously thirstier. And for me, hosting the show makes it even doubly complicated because I did it yesterday and I'll do it today. The plan is to host a 3-hour show without a sip of water, and that's why I have to have tons of water early morning, like a camel. You get my point, right? As far as the spinhaler or the inhaler is concerned, well, yeah, you know what? You have to have it early on, otherwise your chest, if you're asthmatic, is particularly tight. Anybody has a thought about how, whatever, whether you fasted in Ramadan or during Lent and the fast that you undertake, how does that impact on your workspace? I'm particularly keen to know what comes through for you on that one there, right? In terms of what's coming up, you know, there's been an earthquake and a potential tsunami out in Asia. We're talking about Taiwan in particular, and Japan didn't really convert into a tsunami, thank goodness for that, but there's an earthquake and people have died. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about, this is a particularly distressing issue. KZN doctors, well, they had a night vigil yesterday and they're still protesting, I understand. Why? Well, because they can't get jobs. Now, if medical doctors can't get jobs, we have a problem. We'll also chat later on, not quite now, to Lorenzo Davids about party political funding, and we'll certainly talk to Tebe Kalafeng. You know, he's now Dr. Tebe Kalafeng after being honoured with an honorary doctorate from UJ for his work in the marketing and branding space and really enhancing the African continent for all things he does, right? But I tell you what, let's get to the first issue around the ANC Youth League. And they, well, we're going to get to them shortly because they have said that they're particularly concerned about the impact of technology that it has on job opportunities in our country. They're looking at banks, justifiably so maybe, restaurants and others, and saying that this will lead to job losses. Now, that is even before the time of artificial intelligence, okay? So now it's even worse, maybe. But are they justified, A, in expressing a concern, but are they justified with the issue around where we are as a country and, you know, do we embrace technology or do we not embrace technology at all? I mean, those are the things to be concerned about. So we should be chatting to them shortly, okay? In the meantime, so we'll connect with the ANC Youth League shortly, but let's do this. I'm going to pick up maybe on some of your thoughts if you have an opinion on party political funding, as well as some of the issues I've raised, and we'll do that in a moment.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, while we connect with the ANC Youth League in a moment or two, this is also relevant. The ANC and the EFF in Knysna in the Western Cape have called for the suspension of the DA councillor, or a DA councillor, for allegedly using a derogatory term on fellow councillors at a recent council meeting. Now, the parties have called on the Speaker of Knysna's council to investigate a breach of councillors' conduct by Sharon Sabach, who is also the DA chief whip. In a statement, both parties said the comments were degrading and disrespectful, and that Sabach should face the full might of the law. Let's get the whole story with Segment Chetty.
Speaker, you want to teach Matika how to manage a meeting?
Can you switch off the mic, please?
Continue. Or we're going to have a yappa monkey circus going on here.
Who you calling a
Yo.
monkey? Who you calling a monkey?
I'm not calling anybody a monkey.
So which monkey was talking here now, Sabah?
I don't know, you're talking at the moment.
Both parties have called the offensive utterance racially painful, degrading and disrespectful. They say it was reminiscent of the apartheid attitude towards the indigenous people of this country. ANC regional spokesperson Moyisi Magalela says they want action to be taken against the councillor.
She had enough time when councillors showed that they had a displeasure with what she was saying to retract her statement. Rather, she continued with those utterances, in fact, insinuating that her fellow colleagues, which are councillors, are monkeys, and referred herself as a baboon. So we're very disappointed. Like I said, not surprised with the utterances, taking into account that there was a case of Sparrow around the issue of referring to black people as monkeys.
EFF provincial spokesperson Wandile Kasibe agreed with him.
As the EFF, we strongly condemn this behavior by Sharon, and we've called for her immediate removal. Her conduct has angered black people, thus causing crimen injuria. And as the party, we have written to the South African Human Rights Commission calling for the Commission to investigate her with immediate effect.
Responding to the incident, the DA defended their councillor, DA provincial leader Tertius Simmers.
The councillor's comments have been misconstrued and shamefully used to deflect voters' attention from the destruction the ANC, PA, EFF, PBI coalition caused in Knysna as a result of the absolute failure to deliver services to residents, especially to lower income households. From a water crisis, with large parts of the town either without water or undrinkable water flowing from taps, to a waste management crisis, with a growing pile of refuse at the waste removal site in the centre of town, to raw sewage spills into the lagoon, to a serious financial crisis.
The EFF has also opened a case of criminal injuria with SAPS. The office of the Speaker of the Knysna Council is investigating the matter. I'm Segri Chetty, Knysna in the Western Cape.
Masanda wanna trust their creativity to ensure Yanga gets nothing from Mzansi's capital city. But the gentlemen from the east want to leave Kabuyelo in tears. This is the second leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Experience Africa's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Young Africans, on Friday 5 April at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I certainly welcome your comments on that sound clip that we played. really, I hear that two sides of a story, but give me your thoughts on that one. Also, your thoughts about how a religious observance, like in this case Ramadan, but it could also be Lent, how it impacts, not so much spiritually, I don't want to go down that road, but how does it impact in terms of your working day? Like, for example, me, I'm not going to drink any water till past 6, so this entire show, for example, right? How does it impact? You can tell me. Also, if you have any thoughts on party political funding and the level of influence it has or should have in South Africa. To do that, WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. You can call in 086 000 2032. You got that? 086 000 2032. Certainly want to get your thoughts on that. Some people messaging already. I will certainly pick it up in a moment. In the meantime, you may have seen this morning as I woke up, I certainly saw it, I looked on social media and you see these buildings wobbling, and I'm thinking about one building in particular that, just think about a washing line, okay, and think about a shirt or a dress on a washing line which should just hang down firmly, and then it's windy, and then that shirt blows, right? But it still stays on the line, but it blows. Well, I tell you what, when I saw one of the buildings in Taiwan, that is what I thought about, because this huge building. Yeah, it appeared, well, not appeared, the winds sort of, or the earthquakes causing this building to shake and tilt to dangerous levels. Well, that's what happened. Taiwan, Japan, there's been injuries, there's been deaths. We'll find out more about what actually happened with Dr. Gideon Groenewald, who's an independent geologist from Clarence in the Free State. Dr. Groenewald, appreciate your time, and you come from a beautiful part of the world. No earthquakes there, I take it, Clarence?
Hopefully, small ones. We kind of just going to a lot of small earthquakes. That's really your books up and you don't know why. So people must know that there's always small ones, but luckily for us, not these big ones.
Okay, I'm just trying to see if we can hear you very clearly, because we're struggling to hear you on this side here. I just want to make sure that the line is okay, otherwise we're going to miss what you've actually said. Let's just try this once again. So let's get to the issue of the earthquakes in Asia today. What has actually happened?
Well, as I had, on the consists of these.
Okay, now we're really struggling with your line. Okay, let's see if we can reconnect with you. In the meantime, there's a couple of voice notes on some of the issues that I've raised, and let's pick up on those voice notes. We'll play them now.
Welcome back, Ashraf. Welcome back, my brother. I'm Nan Labana from Omzimkhulu, KZN. I'm also a Muslim. It's very easy for me. Being a truck driver, I also take a lot of order early in the morning. And when it comes to take prayers, I got an app in my phone, tells me each and every time that I have to take prayers and time to breakfast. Then I don't see any problem with me. It's okay. Bye.
Hey, Ashraf, I do some fasting now and then, but it's for weight loss purposes and not spiritual or religion. And I found out that if I haven't touched any food in the morning, I'll literally not even get hungry, The only thing that makes me want to eat is because I work, so I'm around people. When my stomach is empty, whether I'm hungry or not, my mood changes. I become very moody, become very ticked off easily, I'm angry. So I will then eat because I'm trying to adjust my mood so I can be friendlier and more welcoming to people that require a service from me. But other than that, I would just, if it wasn't because of my mood and my work environment, I would just go on and eat whenever that I'm hungry. Thanks, it's Bongi.
Well, there you are. That's an interesting one, Bongi. I mean, so they are Bongi fasting, not for religious reasons, for dietary reasons, but there's a specific fast and how it impacts on her. So that's interesting. Thanks for that, sharing that, Bongi. And the earlier call we had about the truck driver, well, really, so you take lots of water, but it must be difficult being a driver. And I'm not too sure whether you said long distance or not, but yeah, that is difficult. That, being in a car, being in a truck all the time. But I mean, inevitably, whichever faith you follow, the fast that you commit to, or even as Bongi were like non-religious fasting. It's you committing to a higher cause, isn't it? Because you want certain things to happen to your body. All those things require a sense of sacrifice. And I mean, here's the thing, no matter how difficult it may be, you somehow manage, isn't it? In a way that you don't quite manage if you were not fasting, because then like even 1 hour or 15 minutes without some nibble is a huge problem in your life. Let me see if we've got some more voice notes. Okay, no. There's a couple. So we're struggling to connect with the guest regarding Japan, but I want to certainly pick up your thoughts on. South Africa we are so fortunate with regard to earthquakes that, and I understand what we're talking about in Taiwan. There's been about 800 injuries and maybe about 7 or 10 deaths. So that's minimal, which my sense to that is, and we'll check it up, it's not so much because of the lack of severity. I mean, it was 7 point something on the Richter scale. It is to do with the fact that by and large, you have a situation where the infrastructure inevitably is sustaining that. Besides that, if you're listening in for the first time on this news show, well, yes, I've started the show hosting yesterday, and I really hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you and I can have a really good connection, not just today, but every single day. Dr. Gideon Groenewald with me from Clarence in the Free State. Good afternoon once again. Hopefully it's much better this time.
Oh, good evening, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me this time.
Yes, I can. So here's the quick thought. I mean, I understand there was an earthquake that didn't convert into a tsunami. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, there was a tsunami. It's just defined as 30 centimeters high, half a meter high. So it was a tsunami. It's just luckily very small.
Okay, so thank goodness for that. Now, the earthquake itself, it was what? Japan, Taiwan, I understand about 700-800 people injured and a few people have died. But in many other countries in the world, an earthquake with about 7 point something on the Richter scale would have far more devastating consequences. Am I right? That means what I'm saying at the moment, it may be 800 injured, it could be 2,000 before they check it up. But it doesn't look like there's a major amount of deaths, right? And injuries.
Yeah, and that is purely because that country has prepared well for earthquakes. A few years ago in 2011 there was a serious earthquake. One of the buildings collapsed, and the architects and the builders were sent to jail. So those people are extremely strict on the design of their buildings to withstand earthquakes because they know they are in an earthquake zone and they are prepared for them. And that's why people are cut by glass. People are being thrown around a little bit, but they don't die because they know what to do. They are trained. Unfortunately, in big parts of the world, that's not done.
Now, I mean, but I did see, having said that, and I used the example of a shirt on a washing line being pushed sideways because of the winds. I saw something like big buildings wobbling. I mean, that did happen, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you must remember an earthquake is when the earth moves up and down and forwards and backwards. But the buildings are designed and engineered to actually withstand that swing, like a ship. It's unbelievable what those people are doing.
So that is fascinating. So that means, I mean, I'm looking at like an elastic band that stretches and there's tension, but somehow, or maybe a trampoline, maybe is a better example. So there's wobbles in the trampoline, but you're not going to fall off. It's actually going to manage, yeah?
Yeah, it's because it's managed quite well by the engineers, and they engineer for the stretch, and the things don't break like concrete. They are made out of steel, and that is why the buildings are lasting. It's designed to withstand these forces. Unless the earthquake goes too high, then unfortunately it becomes impossible to compensate.
Okay, but I'm clearly this is great mitigation. I mean, we know we had the last earthquake, the major one in Turkey. And I mean, there was massive devastation. And you're making the point that's because, a lack of preparedness. I mean, which then brings me onto South Africa. Now, we're not a high earthquake zone. We know that. I mean, there's low-level earthquakes. But again, the concern, and I pray it doesn't happen, but if we do, what would happen?
Yeah.
We're not prepared, are we?
Well, Yeah, we are not prepared for earthquakes as well. I mean, for South Africa, we have other disasters that I think we should be prepared much more for than earthquakes. But the earthquake disasters I expect is small. Joburg, the city with the biggest possibility of some serious earthquakes because of mining, and then up towards Mozambique there might be some. But no, earthquakes, I am not so worried as the Taiwanese. I don't think we should spend too much money on the expense they go to in designing a building.
So you mentioned there are other disaster priorities, and which ones would they be in South Africa?
Water. It is incredible that we are not prepared for this drought. This drought is serious. It's going to last for at least 4 years, and we don't prepare for them. It's unbelievable.
Okay, load shedding, droughts, what more can we wish for? Appreciate your time. Thank you, Dr. Gideon Groenewald, independent geologist who's based in Clarence in the Free State. Well, there you are. I mean, just think about that. The point he's making that, yes, there's a concern around earthquakes in South Africa, but we don't have it at the level of other countries. But look at what Taiwan has done. Completely insulated against major earthquakes. So you find that they've limited the risk. That is remarkable. But is that a priority in this country, or is it water and whatever else? You tell me. And Musa's got the news headlines. It's just gone 3:30.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, the bodies of 8 of the 45 Botswana nationals who died when a bus plunged into the Mamatlakala Bridge between Mokopane and Marken are ready for repatriation. This is according to the Limpopo Health MEC, Dr. Poppy Ramatuba. The DA says it has won its bid to have the ANC and its Secretary General found in contempt of the February 2023 court ruling that ordered it to hand over its full cadre deployment record dating back to January 2013 to the DA. And international pressure is mounting on Israel to conduct a full and transparent investigation into the strike by its forces that killed 7 aid workers in Gaza. I'll have details on these and other stories at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Major routes around Durban looking okay. I'm talking the N3 between Pietermaritzburg and Durban. Also the N2, Spaghetti Junction, Umgene Road, moving nicely as well. So that's all good. There is a bit of a hold-up if you're leaving Chatsworth on the Richmond Road, just moving through to sort of Clava to Richmond Road, going up towards Hunt Stepman Highway. An unusual backlog through there. And of course, Bel Air Road has the roadworks near Chief Abulatuli, and that's quite busy both ways today. Now, if you're driving around Pretoria, part of Sefako Makato, going through to Dr. Swallopool is currently closed. There's some roadworks in that part of Pretoria. Joburg, very heavy backlogs on the R21 South. This is from Tembisa down to Kempton Park. An earlier crash plus roadworks. There's a really big delay as you head down towards the R23 Benoni exit. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through that if you're airport bound today. And Cape Town, some roadworks on the N2 outbound at Muway, just by the exit to Muway and Khayelitsha. Traffic queuing up from as far back as the R300s.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapeli.
Right, Toby, what do we have got today?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon to our listeners. Starting off with football this hour, there's some DStv Premiership action to look forward to tonight. The original Soweto derby takes centre stage. Orlando Pirates are away to Swallows at Dobsonville, and the Buccaneers will welcome 4 key players in Nkosinathi Sibisi, Tapelo Qoki, Tabang Monare, and Patrick Maswangai ahead of the clash. Meanwhile, Swallows will be without striker Gabadinho Mhango, who is ruled out following a yellow card suspension. Kickoff is at 7:30. In terms of other fixtures tonight, Golden Arrows host SuperSport United, Royal AM away to Tears Galaxy, and Chippa United against Cape Town Spurs. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs interim coach Kevin Johnson still believes that he's the right man for the job despite recent results. Amakosi slumped to their 4th loss in 13 matches under Johnson yesterday. They are 7th on the log with 30 points from 22 matches played, but Johnson is still confident that he's the man for the job, and he says that it will be up to the club bosses to decide if he will also be in contention for the permanent head coaching job at the troubled Amakosi.
Depends on the bosses. Look, we're there, and like I said, there's no interim coach anywhere in the world. You do the job because you are offered the job to do it at that moment, and you have to do your best. Right up until now, we are trying our best as a group of people. And if it works, you clap hands, you say thank you, you ask the team to decide what they want to do. And that's where I am at the moment. I do my best. I try and pick the best teams, try and go out there and win as many games as possible. And if I'm successful, then so be it. If I'm unsuccessful, that's what goes on with win or lose. Football is like that. You either win or you lose.
You also draw, by the way. What does Chiefs and Man United have in common? Don't answer that question.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, carry on.
Moving on to rugby news, the Bulls have been hit with a blow with World Cup winner Marco van Staden out for this weekend's Investec Champions Cup round of 16 clash against Lyon. Van Staden injured medial ligaments last Friday, but the initial prognosis has been better than expected, and the club is currently waiting on MRI scans. Meanwhile, Munster are sweating over the availability of their Springbok lock Argus Snyman for this weekend's Champions Cup knockout clash against Northampton Saints. Since joining Munster in 2020, Snyman has been ravaged by long and short-term injuries and has spent more time on the sidelines than on the field. He recently missed their URC clash against Cardiff at home, and now the Irish side has now confirmed that the Giant Lock is also in doubt for the next game. In motorsport, Max Verstappen will aim to bounce back from his poor showing in Australia with a win at the Japanese Grand Prix. Verstappen retired from a race for the first time in 2 years after a brake issue in Melbourne caused smoke to blow from his Red Bull. And Verstappen has started the season in a typical dominant form, winning in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, while Ferrari toiled behind. So he'll be looking to make sure that he does well at that Japanese Grand Prix. Finally, Singapore has ruled out bidding for the 2026 Commonwealth Games as search for a host continues. The Australian state of Victoria withdrew as the original host in July after rising costs. Malaysia were then offered a chance to host and £100 million to help cover the costs, but they rejected the offer last month. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now.
Which does tell us, right? What do you think? I mean, is it worth hosting a tournament like, World Cup, Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games?
I mean, obviously, you can imagine how much money it's going to bring in, but also there's a lot of money that goes out. So you'd have to weigh your pros and cons of a big tournament. Also, just looking at the state of your country.
Because if you look at the Commonwealth Games, and South Africa, I think initially were also going to host it a few years back, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. There's an increased number of cities or countries that don't want to host it because it's not feasible. The costs are crazy. And then Greece, that hosted the Olympic Games in, I think, 2000 or something, within about 8 years they were bankrupt.
Sure.
And South Africa, when they hosted the 2010 World Cup, when the World Cup was over, off went the lights.
Yeah.
Something to consider. Okay.
Well, that's it from my side. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Tumen Kapele.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Mokopane.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Oh, I mustn't forget about this. Yesterday, when I hosted the show on day one, I said, come on, tell me where you are. And we had such a flood of people sending pictures, right? Both directly to us via WhatsApp or even tweeting it out and then using the, SAFM radio tag and then using the hashtag, the National Pulse. Thank you so much. But I'll tell you what, why would I not ask you to do the same thing again today? So wherever you are, probably the two best ones I saw was the guy in the swimming pool and the other guy saying I'm at work and he was somewhere at some wildlife reserve in KZN, right? Well, why don't you do the same thing today? Wherever you are in the country, send some pictures. In fact, there's someone who's already done that from Van der Bijl Park near the Grasmere area, okay? With a picture of the Golden Highway. But what? There's a bicycle, so you're cycling and you're listening to the radio or something like that? Well, I love how it works. Either way, wherever you are in the country, take a picture and post it to us, either via WhatsApp, and you know WhatsApp number, 0614 104 107, or you can also tweet it out. But also, if you can, take a picture ideally with the dial of SAFM in the picture. That'll be just great if you can do that, right? That's technology. And I say that deliberately because we are talking technology now, so much so that, we, as part of the things we're going to do here as we talk about the National Pulse, is to create a technology space called the Innovation Hub because it's that important. Having said that, the ANC Youth League, well, they're rather concerned about technological use in many sectors of South African society, particularly around banks and restaurants, suggesting that, in fact, that leaves many people jobless, and that will add to the unemployment rate. So let's try and understand what are they saying, and do they have a case to be taken seriously? Mtuokolo Ngudle is with me, the Secretary General of the ANC Youth League. Appreciate your time and thanks for joining me.
No, thanks for inviting us to this important platform.
Thank you. So what are you actually saying regarding technology at the same time where I've asked people to post their pictures so that we can share that to the nation?
Look, we say while it is very important that we all accept the digital age, right, wherein every other form of business or operation will be either automated or it will utilize artificial intelligence or robotics, but it is very important, each and every developing country like ours in South Africa, that there should be regulation of this kind of technological advances, so that as you are developing these technologies, particularly in sectors that are low-skilled in terms of skilled sectors, like your farming, your hospitality industry, two, and many others, whether you should not regulate the usage of either robotics, automated operations in them, or artificial intelligence. Because in an underdeveloped country or underdeveloped economy like ours, with people with very low skills, you would want to have those particular people in their workplaces so that they can be able to earn and be able to buy commodities that are produced by the economy. But if you put
the point is well taken, and I hear you, right? And we also have a massive unemployment rate in our country, okay? Definitely. Having said that, you're speaking about us as a developing country, and we know that, right?
Yes.
But how do we move from a developing country to a developed country without embracing the currency of the age? And technology and artificial intelligence is the currency of the age. It's the gold standard of the world today.
Okay. Look, there is nowhere where we are trying to say let's not embrace the currency of the fourth industrial revolution, if you want to put it that way, or feet or whatever, but the advancement of technologies. We're saying the advancement of technologies must be done. Let's invest more on research, innovation, and development so that we can have technology sovereignty. But there are certain sectors which we should regulate, that these are not, because all that has want in a work environment is that the areas that are hard labor, right? Like in the mining industry, you see, where you have massive job opportunities that were previously created in the mining industry for low-skilled workforce. Now, we say in the hard areas where there are incidents of people dying, you can send robots. You see? Now, you are easing the burden both in terms of safety, but also in terms of the cost, input cost at that particular level. But you can create other jobs in other sectors that people can work on, which are not really hard jobs that people can work on. You put in robots and put in people in the areas where you can.
Okay, so I hear you, right?
Individuals.
So I hear you, right? But again, I'm going to ask this question, and I understand nobody wants people to lose jobs, but I'm just suggesting that I mean, are you talking to me of a landline or a mobile phone?
On a mobile phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? 15 years ago, it was unheard of for us to have a conversation on a mobile phone. Today, we have interviews via Skype, via Zoom. Different technologies allow us to do that.
That we must embrace.
Right. So what I'm saying to you is that I understand what you're talking about, low-level skills, but the reality is, if we delay in those low-level skilled areas the introduction of technology, then wouldn't they also fall by the wayside in a globally competitive world? That they and shouldn't rather the approach be skill them even at low level skills to use modern technology ASAP so that they can provide the skills necessary even at low level and become far more sophisticated, which will ensure that the economy will grow?
It's an ideal society that we all want. However, the measurement of the development of our own economy, the people, including the structure of our own economy, must be the determining factor in which we provide regulation in certain sectors on the basis of the reality of our own society, so that we don't put the cart before the horse in the context of our own economy. Because what we are saying is that where you have an advantage of utilizing such technologies, like we are talking on the mobile phone, we have a Zoom, conferencing center, Skype, and all of that. Utilize those for convenient purposes. But the issue is where you are doing national planning or planning of your own economy, what is central planning of your own economy, you should be able to determine which sectors will need more of introduction of these particular technologies and more of a bit of, phasing it in over a particular period, also reskilling and upskilling your own people so that they can be able to utilize those particular technologies. Because you are going to have more technologies like automated operations in your manufacturing, in your retail sector, and shed off many jobs. And you will be contributing now in the much unemployment, bloated unemployment that we are seeing in the country, which has now resulted into 64% of youth unemployment. And this is why we are saying we must be able to phase in these approaches. But as we embrace technology, look at where we are in terms of our development, but also advance in other areas, other sectors of the economy.
Okay, I'll tell you what, so talking about that, we've had a listener who has an opinion regarding automation, and I think it's very relevant to the conversation we're having. So just let me put you on hold. Let's hear that.
So with automation, you're not going to get strikes, and your company's production is going to be able to continue. So it is better to automate for the general economy, because you're not going to have losses in revenue when striking season comes. So that's a thought. Andrew Durban.
Okay, but I mean, Andrew, here's my thought. I hear you what you're saying about strikes, but then if you're not employed, well, you can't strike if you're not employed, can you? Your thoughts on that voice note into a caller?
I think that's a comment of an individual who has no, responsibility of nation building. We're trying to balance technological advancement, human factor that is there of people that are unemployed and subsequently unable to make ends meet. Now, when you have the human factor and the technological advancement, balance it. And that's where we are calling for regulation. We're not saying blanketly block technological advancement in all the sectors of the economy. No.
Okay.
We're saying let's have a scientific study on which sectors we're going to be saying no automation, no robots, and so on. In these hard sectors, we need to advance while we are bringing up our people in terms of skills. That's why we're calling for mass massive reskilling and upskilling.
All right. So here's the question. I understand you. I think the debate about how far does technology go in terms of enhancing simplicity, but at the loss of jobs, I think is an important one. And if you, as part of the audience, has an opinion, you can call in 086 000 2032 or send a voice note 0614 104 107. I really want to know where you stand on this issue. Having said that, just to end up with, in terms of your call, right? So who are you lobbying? Are you lobbying your own party? I mean, you're from the ANC Youth League. Who are you lobbying for this? And how far are you down the line to achieving your goals?
We're lobbying both our party and general society. Remember, the ANC is governed on the basis of the will of our people, right? Now, a national discourse of this nature, in fact, it's a global discourse. In all nation states, this discourse is now at the national level in terms of the economic planning and industrial plans of each and every country. Now, we're saying in terms of industrial policy strategy of that the ANC as a governing party must look at are these factors that relate to the human factor and the advancement of technology, and there must be a balance. And that's why we're calling for extensive regulation and the research on this particular.
Well, let's see where that balance goes, even post the elections and down the line. Appreciate your time. You certainly got us thinking. The Secretary General of the ANC Youth League, Ntobokolo Ngudle, referring to the call in their case about limiting the use of technology, particularly around in banks and restaurants, because that adds to the unemployment rate. And we know there are other issues around artificial intelligence that is escalating into issues. We spoke about it yesterday. The guest I had around an app said we can get someone to take your text and create a news. And I said, well, I'm out of a job. But I mean, how much can we hold on to the advancement of technology in the world when everybody's playing the same game? Colin from Cape Town, you have an opinion? Go ahead. Hi.
Yeah, I want to talk about the doctors, Ashraf.
Right,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The doctors without jobs. Do you know, I can't understand the thinking of our government. Do you know, people go to hospitals at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, standing outside, and till late in the afternoon, there's queues and queues, one doctor, two doctors for the whole day. And we got all medical students that come out of the interim and all this, and nurses and things like that. Now they reckon we haven't got money. The health department hasn't got money to recruit those. We need every doctor, every nurse, every health care worker to have a job and go into
Okay, but what happens if they don't have the money? I'm just trying to understand.
No. I've heard on the radio stations, they're not filling vacancies. There is no money.
No, but that's my question to you. If they don't have the money, will the doctor work for Mahala?
Give me a chance. I'm going to give you a reason.
No. I'm asking you. I need to challenge your position. I'm saying to you, if they claim they don't have the money, and there is no money, will the doctors work for free? That means they're not working as voluntary.
No. Nobody works for free. Now, Parliament, if they cut down Parliament, all the SOEs in the country, you name every SOE, all those big fat cats, 2 CEOs, 5, 10 managers in one department, this and that, cut down that staff, take away. They want more security now. I just heard this morning, they're fighting now. Every councillor must have a security guard.
Okay. Can I leave it at that? Because we're actually going to speak to Colin. Your point is made. You're saying cut the fat elsewhere, and that will give us the money. Point made, because we're going to chat to a representative from the union around representing the doctors. We'll do that in a moment. Colin, thanks for your call. But you tell me your opinion. Where do you sit with the fact that doctors can't get jobs? Doctors Without Borders, Doctors Without Jobs. Where do you fit on that one there? Let me know. My name's Ashraf Garda. This show, the brand new show, is called The National Pulse. And your hand on the pulse of where does the medical industry or the fraternity fit in? It's a huge concern. We'll talk about that next.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about FOMI, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely boss man. And she can earn up to 12.6% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app in less than 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Aston Villa have found comfort on the top half, and they want maximum points to retain their decent position.
Pulling back, and this time, Zaniolo is on! The equaliser belongs to Aston Villa!
Yet the Bees want to cause havoc and deprive the Villains by registering an away victory.
Wissart tried one of them in the first half, he's finished it in the second, and Brentford have turned this round.
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between Aston Villa FC and Brentford FC on Saturday, 6 April at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you on SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Thanks for the incoming voice notes and text messages. I'll check them out just now. And those pictures of wherever you are in the country, particularly locked in to SAFM, and the pictures showing just that. I'd love to see them, absolutely. Certainly love to get doctors having jobs, and many of them do not have jobs, particularly in the KZN region. There's been a vigil, I understand, last night. We'll find out whether that is going on today as well. My guest is Mlungisi Ndlovu, who's the KZN Provincial Chairperson of the Public Servants Association. Appreciate your time, Mlungisi. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon to you and also to the listeners.
So I take it you represent the doctors, right? As a union?
As PSA, we represent the public servants, which include the doctors, and we're part of the march, which we're demanding that these unemployed doctors must be employed.
Okay, so here's the question. Why are these unemployed doctors unemployed?
It's a very clear lack of planning from the side of the department, because our view as PSA in the province, we are saying to train a doctor, it takes more than 6 years. And some of these doctors have received bursaries from the same department. You will recall that the KZN department have placed filling of positions for more than 10 years where they are unable to fill positions, and the vacancies have increasing. And it's very disappointing, because you'll expect that a doctor will be easy to be able to get a job. And what disturbs most, after we have handed memorandum on the 12th of February, the Deputy Minister, Dr. Jome, made a commitment that there will be a response. There was a response by Dr. Pasha, National Minister, who indicated that by the 1st of April, the doctors will be employed. Yesterday, doctors were picketing. They slept outside the gate because they were kicked out by the officials in the department. They don't have answers. As much as we do appreciate that there's a budget issue, but this budget issue has been caused by mismanagement. Now, if they want to cut budget, they cut budget of the employee.
So where's the mismanagement coming from? I mean, is it from the Department of Health? Is it provincial? Just help me understand this.
So if you can go and look at the report from Auditor General, it will tell you how the department has wasteful expenditure. So that's why I'm saying if you have been giving a resource, you must be able to manage. Even though they might say it has been caused by a budget austerity where budget has been cut, we are saying currently we've got about 72 hospitals, 42 community healthcare centers, and over 500 clinics, which are understaffed, and these doctors are expected to work many hours. As a result, as PSA, we are saying you must be able to show us the plan, because our expectation is that the province will have started with the process in terms of the recruitment and selection process. It's simple. You must be able to put your plan. How many vacancies?
Okay, so let me interject you. Let me interject you, because I mean time's against us here. So I understand there's mismanagement. Okay, so that's the reality. Now the other reality is we have to deal with it right now. Now mismanagement can't be fixed up in one day. So what is your solution right now between doctors who need jobs, between hospitals that are understaffed, and a department that doesn't have the money to pay you?
It's very simple. We are saying they should be able to reorganize their HR department to ensure that they've got proper planning to be able to predict demand and supply. So if you do that, you'll be able to balance.
Okay, but that won't sort it out in the immediate term. If the deadline was 1st of April.
Secondly, there was already a pronouncement by the minister to say there is budget which has been allocated. For example, the Minister of Finance in KZN has allocated over 3 billion in the same department. We're expecting them to show us the plan and so that they place these particular unemployed doctors, because it's not only the questions of budget, it's also the questions of planning. We need answers.
Fair enough, yeah. Okay, how many doctors in KZN affected by this position?
So in terms of the numbers that we have received, it's over 500 doctors who are unemployed, who need to work anywhere in the province. So we are saying they must be placed, because our doctors who are our members currently, they are really struggling because they are overworked. We're expecting the minister to respond. The minister must respond to say whether they've allocated enough money to the province, because there was commitment, which means this commitment has not been met by the minister, and the MEC must be able to respond.
Okay, and very quickly we want to news time. I mean, I would take it, my common sense tells me this is a crisis, this is a national crisis. And I mean, the show is called The National Pulse. So what are we feeling? We're feeling a crisis here. How far will the doctors go to make their voices heard? They're being heard now, but, will that convert into actual jobs? You've got 30 seconds.
So what I'm saying is that we have requested the meetings to meet with the MEC and the Prim of KwaZulu-Natal, because we've got possible solutions to say, let's be able to plan, let's put action in plan, let's identify all the vacancies. There are many doctors who've passed away, and some of the healthcare workers who passed away during COVID. Some of them have retired. Position has not been fit. Let's be able to be, all the stakeholders must be together. They must be transparent. When they are transparent, we're willing to engage. That's why we've appreciated that the minister has responded to say there is budget. The lack of communication put a lot of
I tell you what, we're going to leave it there. We should be speaking to a representative from the health department sometime this afternoon. Okay, that's our plan. Is there? I think after 5. It's a crisis. I absolutely believe it is a crisis. How do we resolve it? I don't have the answers. Maybe somebody else has. You can certainly let me know. Mlungisi Ndlovu, the KZN provincial chairperson of the Public Servants Association, suggesting 500 medical doctors in KZN alone. These are people who are qualified, skilled. They can't get a job. So if they can't get a job, what about the rest? It's a huge concern. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's N. Musa.
Thanks, Ashraf. In our top stories, bodies of 8 Botswana nationals ready for repatriation and pressure on Israel to probe killing of aid workers in Gaza. Good afternoon. The bodies of 8 of the 45 Botswana nationals who died when a bus plunged into the Mamatlakala Bridge between Mokopane and Marken are ready for repatriation. This is according to the Limpopo Health MEC, Dr. Poppy Ramathuba. She says they have completed postmortems on the bodies. The deceased were travelling to the St. Ignace Zion Christian Church for the Easter service when the crash occurred. Ramathuba says they've started conducting a series of tests on the remaining bodies that were charred beyond recognition.
We are done with all the postmortems that were scheduled for yesterday for those that are identifiable. We will be guided by the government of Botswana. When do they want those bodies to be repatriated? The ones that will require DNA sampling. We are relying more on Dr. General Moraudzi from South African Police Services, and he has put up a team, and postmortems are being done today for those that are the charred body to get the tissue that will be used for comparison.
The DA says it has won its bid to have the ANC and its Secretary-General found in contempt of the February 2023 court ruling that ordered it to hand over its full cadre deployment records dating back to January 2013 to the DA. The DA's Leon Schreiber told SABC News the judgment was handed down today in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg, with the written judgment to follow. Schreiber says that the ANC has 15 days to hand over all unredacted records, hard drives to IT experts for reconstruction, and hand over records from all committee members. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The DA filed papers in March in the Gauteng High Court after the official opposition party accused the ANC of deliberately withholding its cadre deployment records, dating back to January 2013, when President Cyril Ramaphosa was chair of the National Deployment Committee. While the party did hand over records to the DA, some were redacted. The DA contended that the ANC's redaction of the cadre deployment records was quote-unquote unlawful and made it impossible to determine the impact of the policy on organs of state. The ANC was not immediately available for comment.
A police officer and 4 petrol attendants have been arrested for fraud, theft and defeating the ends of justice. This after the station commander of Lindley in the Free State became suspicious of overspending on fuel. In February 2022, a preliminary audit was conducted on all state vehicles registered under Lindley SAPS. The audit discovered some questionable fuel transactions made on state vehicles. Free State Hawks spokesperson Christopher Singo says the matter was reported to the Hawks in Bethlehem. Singo says the suspects are set to appear in court tomorrow.
The investigation uncovered that a 53-year-old warrant officer allegedly used different state petrol cards by misrepresenting as if he poured petrol into the state vehicles, whereas the vehicles were not at the fuel stations but parked at Lindley SAPS. It was further discovered that the warrant officer was conducting these fraudulent activities assisted by petrol attendants. The incident took place during the period between January 2022 and August 2022.
Archbishop of Cape Town, Reverend Thabo Makgoba, has called on residents to come forward to assist victims of a fire at Mfuleni on the Cape Flats. He visited the area today with members of the aid group Gift of the Givers to assess the situation. 2 people were killed and hundreds left homeless over the past weekend. Makgoba says he hopes local authorities will also help the destitute.
It is very devastating. But I remain hopeful, and I know that South Africans will hear their plea, and maybe come and help build proper houses rather than the structures which are being rebuilt, as you can see, with zinc that has burned down, with holes, and the rains are going to come, and the rains are going to once again take the structure that is compromised, and then the pain is multiplied.
And finally, international pressure is mounting on Israel to conduct a full and transparent investigation into the strike by its forces that killed 7 aid workers in Gaza. At a NATO summit, the British Foreign Minister David Cameron said Israel had to ensure the safety of aid workers and that enough aid was getting into Gaza.
I welcome what the Israeli Foreign Minister said yesterday to me about a full, urgent and transparent inquiry into how this dreadful event was allowed to happen. And we want to see that happen very, very quickly.
Recapping the top story, the bodies of 8 of the 45 Botswana nationals who died when a bus plunged into the Mamatlakala Bridge between Mokopane and Marken are ready for repatriation. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
In sports, Kolkata Knight Riders win toss and elect to bat first, and Rubiales is arrested in corruption investigation. I'll have more on this at 4:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's a very important announcement. If you're driving from Pretoria down for flight connections to the airport, a major delay on the R21. Traffic extending a queue from the Olifantsfontein Road exit to Clayville all the way down through Bopsfontein Road and down towards the R23 Benoni exit. There are some roadworks there. Make sure you've got a ton of extra time to get through that and maintain those flight connections, if you like. That will really surprise just how heavy that is. Durban having a pretty good run. If you're on the commute from Pietermaritzburg into Durban, it looks fine. No obstructions through the roadworks. Even the N2 between Spaghetti Junction and Umgeni Road looking quite nice. There is a bit of a backlog on the N3 outbound, just getting through Paradise Valley onto the M13. And Cape Town, some roadworks on the N2 out of town at Khayelitsha. The left lane's closed as you approach the Muway off-ramp, and that's pushing a heavy queue right back to the airport area. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, the second half of the National Pulse and my second day. So the second half of the second day. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm Ashraf Garda. You can connect with me, by the way, on Twitter, or X as it's called now. And do follow SAFM Radio and do take SAFM Radio when you have any thoughts on any of the issues that we're talking about. And the hashtag we use is called the National Pulse. And we say that deliberately because what we're trying to do on the show is trying to get a sense of the pulse of the nation. So if I ask you this question, what's your sense? What's the pulse of the nation like? What would your answer mean? You can tell me in many ways, perhaps on the issue of specifically around medical doctors, particularly. So if I ask you just to focus on medical doctors, because we discussed it now, what's the pulse of the nation with regard to medical doctors who are unemployed at this point in time? Tell me, and you can do that, in a couple of ways. WhatsApp 0614 104 107. 0614 104 107. You can also call in, and I'll give you that number in a moment. You can call into 086 000 2032. I'm particularly interested in knowing what you have to say. We'll talk to Tebe Kalafang after 5 o'clock. Do not miss that. We'll get an update on the medical health, the issues of the medical doctors with Dr. Joe Patla. We'll talk to him as well. Lorenzo Davis, before that, we're going to talk about political party lobbying in terms of funding and the lobbying around that and influence and how healthy and unhealthy that is. So every reason for you to stick around on that one there. And there's an issue about the DA back in court for that ANC cadre deployment story. You remember that one? We're going to talk about that shortly. But let's talk about what's happened in the DRC right now. So the South African National Defence Force has rejected reports that 2 South African soldiers deployed to the DRC have surrendered to the M23 rebels. It's been reported extensively that was the case. Let's try and understand the story behind that story with Siphiwe Dlamini, the spokesperson for the South African National Defence Force. Siphiwe, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Ashraf, and thank you to your listeners.
Thank you. Okay, so the claim is 2 South Africans effectively surrendered, and you saying, I understand, that's not the case.
Absolutely not the case. We want to state it very clear that all SANDF members deployed in the DRC have been accounted for, and there's no member of the SANDF that has been taken by the rebels there.
So where then has this claim come from?
Look, Ashraf, I don't know. There is news. Social news, online news, the called national security news. I'd never heard of it. They claim to be based in Washington. I don't know if that's true, but from our side, what we know of fact is that there are no soldiers that are missing.
Okay, how do you know that as a fact that there's no soldiers missing?
The fortunate thing, Ashraf, I speak directly to the force commander who's in the DRC on the ground. And as this morning, I had a conversation with him, and early this afternoon, I also had a conversation with him, and I have no doubt whatsoever of what he's telling me. He has been a force commander on 3 occasions in the DRC, and he also commanded the Force Intervention Brigade under the MONUSCO, so I have no doubt what he's telling me.
Okay, well, I mean, that's good to know. How many South African soldiers there?
Well, the summit DRC has been deploying in phases, but if you take into consideration the number of troops, inclusive of the UN mission there, we have well over 1,000 troops.
Okay. Now, I hear you very clear, emphatically, with direct confirmation that no South African soldier has surrendered. What would happen in a case if a soldier did surrender? What are the implications?
I wouldn't even go there because none of our soldiers would surrender under any circumstances.
Well, then you've answered the question in a sense that you're saying that they have an order not to ever surrender. Is that correct?
No. I'm saying no military personnel from the South African National Defence Force would have to surrender under any circumstances. They know exactly why they are there, and they will do the job as they have been required.
So let me pick up on that phrase, under any circumstances. What does that mean, under any circumstances?
Look, Ashraf, let's not beat about the bush. Our troops are in a very difficult situation in the DRC. And I can, without any doubt, tell you that our soldiers are prepared, as they've always been prepared. They have been there before, they've seen it, and they know what to do and how to do what they're supposed to do.
They know what to do. Just explain then in terms of why they are there for those that don't know. What is the purpose of them being in the DRC? I mean, you mentioned the government, you mentioned the rebels. What's the position there with South African soldiers?
The position is not a South African position, but it's a regional position. South Africa is part of the Southern Africa Development Community, which is SADC. A decision was taken around about late last year, October, November, December, at a summit in Angola, where the presidents and leadership of the SADC acceded to a request by President of the DRC to come and assist the military of the DRC to protect the civilian population that were under attack from various rebel movements in the Eastern DRC in particular. And we are there to do that. Okay. And as you said, no surrender under any circumstances. Under any circumstances. Okay, got that. Just the last thing. I mean, if their lives are at stake, I mean, would they... I'm trying to understand modus operandi here. If it's a case of surrender or die? I mean, that is a reality. Ashraf, we are there for a purpose. And what we are sure of what we are going to do is to first make sure that the civilian population is safe, protected, and as we conduct our job and our work, we are also safe and we protect ourselves.
And maybe that's why I'm not a soldier. Got that. Thank you so much for your time. Siphiwe Dlamini, spokesperson for the South African National Defence Force. So he's quite clear. No South African, or none of the two that has been mentioned, two have surrendered. It's absolutely not the case. Let's see if we can pick out some. There's a couple of callers and voice notes before we get to the other issue around cadre deployment, a very important one. Mr. Ngubane, good chatting to you from Greytown. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashraf. My comment will be around the issue of the doctors that are not employed and who are also petitioning the government to employ them.
Yeah.
You see, I will follow the doctor's approach in dealing with the matter. You don't send a patient to the pharmacy for prescription. You first and foremost diagnosing the problem. What is the problem? I think objectively there is a need for an additional doctors. If you look at the doctor population or doctor patient ratio, I think the waiting times are long and so on. And centers have also confirmed that we have grown as the population of South Africa by 7.8 million. We are sitting at around 62 million. So there's a population growth as one variable, but the problem is that when you look at the economy, the reinforcing loop that drives the economic growth is lagging behind the reinforcing loop that drives the population growth. So there is that discrepancy between the two. remember, government gets money from people who've got salaries. For you to have a salary wage, you must be employed. So the population is growing, but the number of people who've got money in their pocket, it is shrinking because the common growth is not proportional to the population growth, and that's where the problem is. And lastly, the issue of saying if we improve leakages, we deal with the leakages and efficiencies, then there will be money. It's not true. What will happen if we deal with the inefficiencies and leakages is that the money allocated for houses will improve houses, will not be redirected and go elsewhere. So the money will improve the public service and goods that are being provided in terms of the budget. Not that the money
Let's leave it at that, Mr. Ngubane. I think the issue of medical doctors being placed is an absolute given. They have to be placed. You cannot have understaffed hospitals and then 500 doctors in a region not getting jobs. Having said that, and let's be clear about this, the fact that all these various departments all around the country are battling with their financials is a reflection on the mismanagement of many, many departments in our country. And when we talk about the show, we call it the National Pulse. Well, there you are. What does that tell you about the National Pulse? It really is ticking and boiling because just so many areas of our country have been mismanaged and we bear the brunt of that. Thanks for that call. Let's get another one from Abram, who also wants to talk about the same issue. Abram, thanks for joining me.
Yes, how are you? And good afternoon to you all.
I'm good, and I'm wondering about those unemployed doctors, man. Goodness, tell me.
Yes. No, I think government needs to get their priority right, especially when it comes to the services that they provide and those that are needed down there. I'll give an example. We've got almost 30 national departments, all of which have got offices in Pretoria. And I know of one department which employs around 8,000 people. And these people are supposed to be dealing only with issues of police. And yet, we've got doctors who are sitting at home and are not working. But you've got these people who are sitting in Pretoria and they are not really servicing people on the ground. The second issue, government around last year towards the end, they introduced containment measures. By then they were suspecting that they won't be able to spend money. But you should go and check how many departments have actually failed to spend their budget in the past financial year. You'll find that the same health department has not actually been able to spend all their budget, and the budget has to be taken.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? There are just too many departments that are just poorly managed. So you find like there's a problem here, there's a problem there, there's a problem there. They just don't know which way to turn. It certainly gets us all thinking about the people that lead our country. Quite honestly, if we don't ask those questions, we'd be crazy if we don't do that. Thanks for that. Thanks for that call. Appreciate it. Further thoughts are certainly welcome. I'll pick out some WhatsApps as well right after this.
Aston Villa have found comfort on the top half and they want maximum points to retain their decent position.
Put it back, and this time, Zaniolo is on! The equaliser belongs to Aston Villa!
Yet the Bees want to cause havoc and deprive the Villains by registering an away victory.
Wissart tried one of them in the first half, he's finished it in the second, and Brentford have turned this round.
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between Aston Villa FC and Brentford FC on Saturday, 6 April at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the
game. The National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we'll pick out some. In fact, there's a couple of WhatsApps that we've got related to some of the issues we've raised, including the issue of fasting, and in my case, fasting in Ramadan, but not so much the spiritual aspect, how it impacts on your work. Others have spoken about fasting in Lent, and others not fasting for dietary reasons. How does this affect your day-to-day running of your life? Interesting thoughts around that, and feel free to certainly comment on that via their WhatsApp text or voice notes 0614 104 107. Okay, I think what we'll do is let's get to an important issue around the DA. The DA and the ANC, they at each other, as understandably so. One of the parties in government is the ruling party, the other one in opposition. And there's been this issue of the ANC cadre deployment issue. And the DA has now confirmed that they've won the bid to have the ANC and its Secretary General to be found in contempt of that February 2023 court ruling that ordered it to hand over its full cadre deployment records dating back to January 2013. So let's try and make sense of what's happened today with the DA Shadow Minister of Public Services and Administration, Dr. Leon Schreiber. Dr. Schreiber, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Great to be with you.
Thank you. So first, give us an update of what actually was decided or ordered today.
Yes, so it was quite an extraordinary sitting today of the Johannesburg High Court, because we received what they call an extempore judgment, which is a judgment that the judge feels is so important and urgent that it actually should not wait for a written judgment. So that's why at the moment the written judgment is still being drafted. However, the judge did then, of course, deliver an oral judgment where he really laid out a devastating analysis of the ANC's behavior in this matter, basically confirming every single point made by the DA in our court papers, that the ANC illegally redacted some of the documents that they handed over, that the ANC illegally destroyed some of the documentation after the court order was granted initially, that the ANC illegally withheld information that is in the possession of someone like President Cyril Ramaphosa, who of course was the chairman of the deployment committee. And on the basis of all of these illegal acts by the ANC, the court then concluded that the ANC's behavior was willful and mala fide contempt of court. In other words, deliberately designed to undermine the rule of law, and a ruling that was upheld by the Constitutional Court.
And therefore, I mean, your understanding, the word devastating is your words, not the ruling, I gather, right? But your understanding of what's happened around the issue of cadre deployment is what? The ANC has done all those things because of what? Because why?
Well, because fundamentally it wants to hide the information from the public. I mean, you'll remember that we had 3 different court cases to actually compel the ANC to hand over the information. We went to the Johannesburg High Court, and then they appealed all the way to the Constitutional Court. And then, as you said in your intro, they were ordered to hand this over at the beginning of this year, and they failed to do so. They deliberately withheld vast reams of information from the DA. They redacted information that they were not allowed to do, and that's why we went back to court to say this is actually now contempt by the Secretary General and by the party itself. And the ANC and the court agreed with that. And I think an important element of the ruling that could be of particular interest is that it says that specifically withholding WhatsApps and emails that are in possession of the president, given that he was the chairman of the committee during this period for which they haven't provided information, was an especially egregious act of undermining the court. So we do have quite an extraordinary situation now. It's the first time in our democratic history that the governing party itself has been found to be undermining an order of the Constitutional Court, and that is indeed a very dangerous situation. So I think it is high time for the ANC and for President Ramaphosa to comply with the Constitutional Court order and make public all of the records that they have.
Okay, so what would your party do next?
Well, now the ANC has 15 working days to comply with this particular order, and Ashraf, I must emphasize, we have at all parts of this particular campaign, we have worked within the law and within the rights of all parties. So we again will respect the ANC's right to take 15 working days now to comply. But if they don't comply and if they undermine this ruling again, we will again use the legal processes to take it a step further. Because essentially all that remains now is imprisonment. The next step of undermining a court judgment would be the DA returning to court for a criminal contempt of court case to say, we've tried the civil route, the court has upheld what we've said, But now the only thing that's left is to actually.
I would think common sense says that they would have to comply, but that's one part of it, right? The other part, and let's go back to the beginning. I mean, the entire reason for the DA to raise the issue of ANC cadre deployment is what? That the DA felt that there were appointments made that were partisan. I mean, what was your purpose initially?
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, it is related to the era of state capture, because as the Zondo Commission confirmed in its report, that cadre deployment was a key mechanism that facilitated state capture. That's the words of the Zondo Commission. And this means that if we want to fully understand how state capture happened, who was involved in that, then we need full access to the records and information from the cadre deployment committee during that particular period. And it doesn't matter how much the ANC tries to obfuscate on this issue. The fact of the matter is that the sitting president of the Republic was the chairman of cadre deployment from 2013 until 2018. So the fundamental motivation, the fundamental issue here is that if we want to have full accountability for everyone involved, then we must get the information that the Zondo Commission told us was fundamental to state capture, to corruption, and to failing.
And outside of forensic records, and I mean, hopefully when these are released, we'll be able to see all of that. I take it that you anecdotally have enough information that suggests that was the case. There's been cadre deployments that effectively undermined the state.
Key reasons why we can say this is because during the testimony by Gwede Mantashe and Cyril Ramaphosa before the Zondo Commission, the Commission actually obtained a limited set of minutes from a period after the state capture era, if we want to call it that, which confirmed to us that this committee is involved with influencing the appointment of people not only in the state and in state-owned enterprises, but in some cases even in your Chapter 9 institutions and even in the judiciary. So we know from that evidence that this is how this committee operates. The key question now is why the ANC has gone to such incredible lengths, undermining essentially the Constitutional Court, to keep the records from Ramaphosa's era a secret. And I think that should concern us all.
Okay, and that question, that an answer I don't have, we can all suspect, and I think the audience will suspect, and you have your own thoughts about that. Well, that question will be answered, I would think, pretty shortly. Appreciate your time. Thanks for that. All of this, I think, has great context, not just for now because of the issue of delivery or service delivery, but certainly there's an election coming up, and that has implications, as you know, the way people do things in this country. Dr. Leon Schreiber, the DA Shadow Minister of Public Service and Administration. By the way, we'll talk to Lorenzo Davids about the influence of party political funding, and that will come up shortly. Do not miss that. It's just gone 4:30. Here's the news headlines with Ann Musa.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, the South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesija Kganyago says discussions continue to take place about reducing the inflation target. The Reserve Bank's target inflation range currently sits between 3 to 6%. The bodies of 8 of the 45 Botswana nationals who died when a bus plunged into the Mamatlakala Bridge between Mokopane and Marken are ready for repatriation. This is according to the Limpopo Health MEC, Dr. Poppy Ramatuba. And rescuers in Taiwan are attempting to reach dozens of people trapped in road tunnels after a powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake. Details on these and other stories at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, these days we warn about allowing plenty of extra time to get from Pretoria for flight connections at OR Tambo International Airport. The change-up today is the roadworks have taken on a slightly different sort of feel. The restrictions, the heavy restrictions, are much further south near the R23 Benoni exit. Now, that traffic is back beyond Bapsfontein Road, back beyond the Engen garages and back to Clayville. So you've got a slowdown coming on the R21 into the first roadworks, which are before Olifantsfontein. And then once you get to Olifantsfontein, it gets super heavy. There's a video up on x.com. You can log on, have a look at our handle at Traffic SA. You can see just how badly backed up that R21 is. Lots of extra time required to get through that and to get those flights on time. Otherwise, you've got a bit of traffic backlogging on the N1 South coming through Midrand into a broken down vehicle just by the Buccleuch interchange, and a breakdown on the N12 heading up to Boksburg and Benoni by Jet Park Road, and that's pretty slow as well as you line up with a queue back towards Craft Road. Durban today, the N3 just queuing to get out towards Paradise Paradise Valley as you hit the roadworks from Pavilion Mall. And Cape Town, there's just been a crash on the N2 out of town at Lisbeck Parkway. Now, that's going to back up Nelson Mandela Boulevard and Philip Kusana going through the bend, but it's also just starting to backlog M3 traffic as you arrive into that from UCT. Also, roadworks still with us today. The N2 further out at Meway as you approach the off-ramp. There's a left lane closure there at Khayelitsha, and that's a heavy queue that extends right back to Borchard's Quarry. In fact, beyond that, right back to the airport. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
So early on, we spoke about the fact that nobody wants to host the Commonwealth Games. What are the big stories now, to me?
Well, this hour we start things off with cricket. Cricket on the go. Kolkata Knight Riders won the toss and they elected to bat first in the IPL game against the Delhi Capitals. The Knight Riders have made the perfect start to the tournament with 2 wins out of 2. With the Capitals started with 2 losses before bouncing back with a 20-run win against the Chennai Super Kings in their last match. In terms of how they are looking right now, the Knight Riders are currently sitting on 89 for 1 after 6 overs. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka beat Bangladesh by 192 runs in the second test to take a clean sweep of the 2-match series today. Lahiru Kumara finished with figures of 4 for 50. He dismissed last man standing Khaled Ahmed to wrap up a one-sided contest before lunch on the 5th day. Host Bangladesh, who were chasing a mammoth 511 in their second innings, added just 50 after resuming on 268 for 7. Then moving on to football, newly elected chairperson of the African Club Association, Hersey Ellis Said, says that Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates deserve a place in the expanded African Football League next season. Said says that the AFL is set to expand to 24 teams next season. It will make sense to have 2 of the strongest football clubs commercially in Southern Africa taking part in the tournament.
I had the information that this time around they will have, instead of 8, they will have 24. So 24 is a big number. I know the continent has more than 500 clubs, but out of from 8 to 24, it's a big number, and that can be able to pull the biggest team in Africa. Young Africans is one of them. With no doubt, we will have to be there because of our performance, because of our fan base, and it will amplify the entire tournament. In South Africa, Mamelodi Sundowns, talking about the levels, yes, they deserve to be part of that. But you cannot run away as well from Kaizer and Orlando. They are 2 teams with the biggest number of fan base in South Africa as well.
Well, still staying with football, Cameroon have appointed Belgian Mark Brace as the new head coach of their men's football team, following news in February that former coach Rigobert Song's contract would not be renewed. Brace would be assisted by Joachim Mununga, and it is also named new technical, medical and administrative side. Now, Song's contract, agreed in March 2022, came to an end in February the 29th. He led the Indomitable Lions to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, where they beat Brazil, but they went out in the group stages. Elsewhere, disgraced former president of the Spanish Football Federation, Luis Rubiales, has been arrested as part of a corruption investigation. He was detained on his arrival in Madrid from the Dominican Republic. He is suspected of receiving illegal commissions when negotiating a lucrative deal to stage the Spanish Super Cup competitions in Saudi Arabia. Prosecutors are seeking a 2.5-year jail term for Rubiales, who denies any wrongdoing as per usual. Then in rugby, tight head prop Wilco Louw expects a bruising contest between 2 formidable sides, between the Bulls and Leon clash at Loftus Versfeld on Saturday. The Bulls host their first playoff in the Champions Cup when they welcome Leon to the Highveld. The Pretoria outfit must rebound from a heavy defeat by Leinster in Dublin, as well as exact revenge for a narrow loss in the group stages at Lyon. However, Jake White's side are definitely going to fancy their chances, with the French club languishing at the foot of the top 14 standings. Yet Louw acknowledges the physical threat posed by the visitors, especially in the set pieces encounters. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Tuming Khapele.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Thanks for that, Tumi. Lots to consider of all those things about Chiefs and Pirates. I won't say much now, but and the Spanish issue, as per usual, made notes of that one day indeed. Okay, we're going to chat to Lorenzo Davids coming up pretty shortly. In the meantime, let's talk about the markets now with Makwe Masilela. We talk to him every year around this time. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good afternoon and good chatting to you once again.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and good afternoon to listeners. How are you keeping?
I'm pretty good, but you tell me I'll probably be better when you tell me that local markets are buoyant in comparison to international markets. You tell me.
Unfortunately, you remember yesterday we closed down 0.1%. Today, as we're talking, we are down 0.4%. Ashraf, two voting Fed officials said they still expect the U.S. Central Bank to cut rates 3 times this year, but one official said only one cut should be expected, though they're in no rush to begin lowering borrowing costs. Indeed, rate cut hopes are beginning to fade, and we see bond traders piling into bearish bets, fueling a sell-off when it comes to treasuries as fresh evidence of robust U.S. growth, latest being their job openings, a measure of labor demand, triggering a rethink when it comes to the expectations for rate cuts. And the strongest quake to hit Taiwan in 25 years has also hit a pressure point when it comes to global supply chain. And so far, a resilient economy, robust corporate earnings, and excitement over artificial intelligence have helped stocks largely to shrug off rising yields this year, and some investors worry, however, that elevated valuations could make stocks more vulnerable if rates keep climbing, and besides rising the cost of capital for companies and households, higher yields, Ashraf, can increase the appeal of what we call risk-free treasury bonds compared to stocks, and market participants will be focusing on the remarks coming from the Fed Chair Jerome Powell later in the session, and we saw the euro area inflation slowing more than expected. That itself cemented prospects for an interest rate cut by the European Central Bank, and U.S. private payrolls grew more than expected in March, and that's another sign of the resilience in the economy, and that itself continued to send bond yields higher as market participants grow increasingly worried about the path of interest rate cuts. And locally, our central bank is in discussions of lowering the inflation target. Remember, currently it's 3 to 6%, and this was introduced in 2000. And a lower target will make the country more competitive and bring the central bank in line with peers. So the market sentiment is kind of cautious, and a meeting of the top OPEC Plus ministers kept oil output policy unchanged and encouraged other members to comply. Oil prices are at 5-month high, up 0.4%, trading at $89 a barrel. And the growing tension in the Middle East and interest rate cut hopes continue to push investors to safe haven assets. Hence, we will continue to see gold being at elevated levels, though it's down 0.1%, trading at $2,276. Platinum is down 0.7% at $970. And the FTSE is flat. The CAC is up 0.3%, DAX up 0.4%, the Dow is up 0.2%, S&P is up 0.4%, but the JSE, as I said, is down 0.4% and dragged mainly by our financials, which are down 1.3%. Industrials down a mere 0.1%, but our resources are up 0.4%. The rand is 18.74 to the US dollar, 23.60 to the pound, and 20.24 to the euro.
And that's where we can leave it. We'll chat tomorrow and hopefully better news next time, right? That's Makwe Masilela, the Chief Executive Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. We'll do it again tomorrow. Now, we'll talk about the health issues in terms of the doctors in KZN, about doctors without borders, rather doctors without jobs, and what that really means, and whether that can be resolved. We'll have a look at that coming up after 5 o'clock. Do not miss that. I promise you, I must read some of your WhatsApps, some nice texts complimenting me or welcoming me on hosting the show, and I really appreciate that. I need to read them, and I'll look at some of the voice notes as well. You can also tweet it out on Axis at SAFM Radio, and you can also tag me at Ashraf Garda. Do use that hashtag, which is the National Pulse. You got that? The National Pulse. But in a moment or two, we will pick up on, I think, a really important conversation that is critical to what's going to happen with the election and beyond around the influence of party political funding into the elections with Lorenzo Davids.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 35 Rand from Hatfield to Centurion. It's for Ikoko, who steady chill on neutral on a downhill just to save fuel. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 35 Rand from Hatfield to Centurion Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Masanda wanna trust their creativity to ensure Yanga gets nothing from Mzansi's capital city. But the gentlemen from the east want to leave Kabuyelo in tears. This is the second leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Experience Africa's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Young Africans, on Friday 5 April at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, there's some. So we're going to chat to Lorenzo Davids pretty shortly. Let's just see what we've had WhatsApps that I need to pick out on. I'm trying to open that one. There's just struggling with that for the moment. Many people have been sending out pictures, and I really appreciate it. There's some Cuthbert who's at Alzu and 4 in Mpumalanga. Thanks for that. Nice. I need to visit. There's another one, Cowan, I think it is, in Tuli, or Cowan in Tuli Street in Middelburg. Currently, looks like it's raining there. I can give you a weather report. And then Seppo saying, welcome Ashraf, receiving you nice and clear from Mokopane in Limpopo. I appreciate it. And I hope you're enjoying it and really value your feedback. There's a couple of more. And really, some others have sent out pictures which I really think are great. Another one from Morningside in Durban, not sure who that is. There's a couple of comments about fasting, as we discussed, and we'll try and read those out as well if we get a chance. And there's a couple of more. We, as a community of Buffels Hook in Mpumalanga, we try to engage with the Department of Education in Mpumalanga, with the MEC. That's Bonakele Majuba. He doesn't give us a good response, and we approach the office. This is what it says. I'll see if I can pick up on that one too. And there's a couple of more who spoke about the fasting of Ramadan. I'll see if I can find that one, about what that really means. Okay, let's do this. There's a few voice notes I want to play. Let's do that quickly.
Hello, Mr. Gada. Welcome back to SAFM. We truly missed you, and we hope you and us going to have a very blessed and a fruitful journey. Well, in terms of fasting, in my church, we are not required to take any liquids, be it water or tea or whatever, unless if it's more than 14 days. But last time when I did 40 days fasting, I only had water for 40 days and 40 nights. Yes. So thank you, Ashraf.
So
we love you, sir.
Oh my goodness, we love you, and you missed me as well. This is great. Now, well, I'll tell you what. If you ever come into the studios in Joburg, come and say hello. You never know, or if we get to you, right? But really, and I think your point about that, let's keep the connection going. I certainly want that. We want the engagement going, so I value that absolutely. Therefore, I really appreciate your feedback as well all the time. And you can WhatsApp us with text messages as well, but also even on Twitter, or you can tweet us on X if that's the right words to use. Tag SFM Radio, tag me, Ashraf Garda. You'll find me on all social media platforms, by the way. But use the key one there is to use the hashtag, which is the national purpose. And here's a question to every one of you: what do you feel about the national pulse, rather? What do you feel about the pulse of the nation right now? I mean, where is it ticking? High, low, good, bad? You tell me. If there's another WhatsApp, let's play that voice note.
Hi Ashraf, welcome back.
Okay, so when it comes to fasting, my fasting starts at 12 midnight. So as soon as the day begins, that's when my fasting starts, up to 4 p.m. And at times, I work in the food industry. So at times it's not so easy. You have all the sorts of food in front of you and you are abstaining from it. Yeah, it's not so easy. So, yeah. Thank you.
I mean, are you serious? I've tried to understand that you're fasting from midnight to 4 a.m. You know what? I also fast from midnight to 4 a.m. like every single night of the whole year because I'm sleeping. And I think many people would be in the same boat. Okay, let's get a caller from Kroonstad around the issue of cadre deployment. Maluleka Lani, rather. Welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, actually. Thanks for taking my call. It's Manugelane.
Yeah, got that. Thank you. Thanks for helping that out too. Right, what's your take on cadre deployment?
Ashraf, man, I'm very worried regarding to the issue of that ANC, the very same ANC denial the order from the Constitutional Court. I anticipated to know how that is going to be happen because today we are sitting with the issue of former President Zuma. He was denying the very same order coming from the Constitutional Court. Should the ANC also be subjected to be a criminal because of what ANC is doing now? Should the ANC also be strike off into the role because the ANC of which now the way they are doing, they are not complying to Constitutional Court. It means that is a criminal. ANC also must strike off to the roles. This is what my point I'm trying to highlight here.
Strike off the roll. Okay, got that. Thanks for that. And again, you're getting us thinking, but that story is going to develop now in the light of the court judgment. Thanks for that call, and keep on listening. All right, appreciate it. Thumbs up to you. Thank you. Right, keep those WhatsApps coming. I certainly particularly like the fact that again people are sending those pictures from wherever you may be in the country: Pretoria, Johannesburg, Cape Town, Gqeberha. We haven't had one from you today. Just checking up where we are on that. Certainly want to know where you are. Some people from Kroonstad too, as you know. We've had a couple from Pretoria. Just gives me a nice sense of who I'm talking to where. But I love the fact that many of you are taking pictures with the SAFM dial locked into it and said, hey, that's what we're listening to. I'll tell you what, listening is maybe a very operative word if you're a political party and you need money to run the party. Now, I live in an ideal world sometimes, and I wish there was no need to campaign. You just go out, no money whatsoever. Every party has the same amount of money, and you just campaign with limited budget and may the best party win. End of discussion. That's not the case. We know that there's funding which is proportional from the IEC to all the parties that contested the previous election, proportional to their percentage. So the ANC, in this case, would naturally have gotten the most amount of money. So that's one. However, they all claim, all the parties, that's not enough. They need even more money to run their machine effectively. And then up steps in who? You and me and everybody else. And decides to fund parties that we like, that we partisan too. That's okay, I suppose, isn't it? Then you get another situation where people fund parties. They fund more than one party. I always found it very surprising. And many said, in the interest of democracy, whatever that means. Having said that, the ongoing question is party funding important? I suppose it's yes at this point in time. But what about the funders? What influence do they have over parties? And why would they want to fund a party or parties in the first place? So, Lorenzo Davids has got lots of thoughts on this issue. He's an independent political analyst. Lorenzo, great chatting to you, and maybe for the first time here since I'm hosting this show on my return to SAFM.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners and to you, congratulations on being back. It's great to hear your voice from me again.
Thank you,
Well
thank you so much. Right. So when I last engaged with you, we were talking about trains. So from train spotting and the middle class riding around in trains, you have a bigger issue to peel right now around funding.
Yeah, Ashraf, I fully believe that there's a particular understanding that we must have as we go into this election, and that is what role do funders, and especially political funders, play within the larger ecosystem of our elections. And having that as a clear understanding is very, very important for the voter, because the voter must understand that the funder itself often becomes a political player. the funder is not a neutral player within the discourse of our elections. And once we can understand that and grasp that, then we'll have a clearer view as to who's behind the message and the manifesto and the candidate.
So let me break it into two parts. I mean, we'll talk just now about who's funding who in South Africa and the implications for the upcoming election, right? Let's talk about the principle of party political funding. Do you agree with the principle or don't you?
Ashraf, I agree with the principle of political funding, but I do believe it should be far stricter ring-fenced, and that funders, and it is there now, the mechanism, funders should pay into a pool and not directly fund vulnerable democracies like ourselves. When it is a far more astute democracy and a deeper democracy, then perhaps there are political funders who can come alongside parties. But in a politically vulnerable democracy like ours, I believe all funding should be pooled, ring-fenced, and the funder can designate who it must go to, but when it's paid out to the party must not know who gave it. That, for me, is a funder being not influencing the election itself.
Okay, so the party would still, the funder would still identify a party of choice as opposed to putting it into a common pool, right?
Yeah. The funder would still say to the common pool, listen, Entity X, who is the financing governance body of the elections, here's my money, it must go to party X, and the financing body may not disclose the name of the funder to the party. They all get the money, but they won't know where it came from.
Okay, but I'm trying to play this through now, okay? So business person X, who's got 20 million rands to give away, tells puts the money into the pool, instructs let's say the IEC that this money must go to party Y, right? Okay. Yeah. But that person obviously supports that party. What stops that person telling the party, by the way, you're going to get your money because I support you guys. It'll come soon. Yeah,
and again, that's the credibility that's the credibility test of our entire system. What you are projecting is exactly what may happen, and I'm sad about that because we should have a far more robust election system from the IEC to the party financing mechanisms to how candidate lists are drawn up. It should be far more filled with integrity and robustness. Right now, it's not, and so yes, we run the risk. But I keep on trying to think what is the best mechanism to manage party funding. Right now, it's open season. Funders literally back a candidate like they back a horse at the races.
So what that happens in practice? Okay, so in practice right now, and it's topical, May 29, right? There are. I mean, do I take it that just about every party in this country is funded? You can't survive without being funded, right?
Yeah. No, you can't.
Okay. So what's playing out? I mean, you put together a fascinating thread on Twitter, and people need to follow you as Urban Low, as in LO, right? What are you saying about the parties being funded this year and the implications thereof?
Well, I think that funders obviously are funding largely in opposition to the ANC. That's clear. The sort of gathering of new and smaller parties to the right of the ANC is clear. It's there. We can all see it. Suddenly there's a burst of new parties emerging, and it's coming from 2, 3, or 4 fairly large funders who have the money to give it. And so there's certainly a message within that money. It is not just by coincidence.
So just to interject, because this is important. So the general statement, and we're talking about people who've got big money, right? Yeah. When others have argued, and I mean, there are parties like Action SA and Musi Maimani's party and a couple of others, maybe even including the DA, perhaps, and maybe even Rise Mzansi, where there's common funders. The general thing I've heard is like, these people have money. They just want to support democracy. You're suggesting when they multi-party fund, that doesn't hold.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And as I in another part of my life, I consult for funders, and I know the role that they play in this business. I know that they support parties that they are politically aligned to, that they align to in philosophy and ideology, or in history. They have a family alignment to it. They have a political ideological alignment to it. So it's not just occasional. It's not just incidental. There is a clear intentionality behind the funding, and we need to understand that.
But it's not illegal, is it?
It's not illegal. No. It's not illegal, and that's the problem. We need to safeguard this, because in another 5 years from now, in 2029. This is going to be an even far more serious problem within our democracy. Between now and 2029, I believe that funders are going to play the chessboard far more severe than what they've done between 2019 and 2024.
And the point you made earlier that, I mean, funders, do you ever have a situation where a funder, and I'm not talking of the 10,000 Rand funder, we're talking about the 20 million, the 100 million and whatever.
Absolutely.
Do they ever fund that much without being able to influence party policy?
I know that I do think they play a role in party policy. I do think that there are interests on the table. And I always ask political parties to disclose what the conditions are. And sometimes those conditions are not written down. They are verbal agreements. And sometimes there is a fine print in a legal document with the lawyers of both parties as to what should be or what should rather not be in the manifesto. And so that's clear. When that kind of money exchanges hands, then there is a legal agreement as to what should not be punted by this party or what they should advocate for. There is no free money in an election.
So you're saying that party policy, therefore, is very driven by the cards on the table the funder puts on the table before they decide and they agree to receive the monies.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have a particular policy around land or economic reform, or around how an election system itself will work, or who your presidential candidate will be, there are people who are interested in those macro and micro policy positions of a party. And they will give money for a micro position or a macro policy decision. And so the funder is very involved in how the manifesto rolls itself out.
Okay, we got 15 seconds. I'm going to rush you on this one very quickly. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and it's an interesting conversation to have. But is the flip side not your proposal? I know the IEC distributes money based on the previous election. What about funders putting money to safeguard democracy into the common pot, and they don't ever distribute to parties, but in fact you have a broader IEC that distributes to the political parties as exists right now? And if that's the case, how would we determine the percentages? But you've got like 20 seconds to answer that.
Yeah, I am fully agreed with the IEC becoming a far more robust and strong institution. In fact, I am scared that it is not becoming that right now. And so funding must be made available to strengthen the IEC. And in my last 2 seconds, I want to say that if the IEC gets the funding, and then we have a mechanism that parties all agree with how that funding should be distributed, both to the IEC as the primary beneficiary, and then what is left split between the parties on some kind of formula, that's what I'm in favor of.
And they're not going to agree with you for this election, and we know that. Lorenzo Davids, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Certainly got me thinking, and should get the SAFM audience all around the country absolutely thinking. We'll pick up on that. I want your thoughts on that one. You can WhatsApp or call me in a moment or two. However, let's get the news now. Just gone 5 o'clock. Here's Ann Musa.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top stories at 5 are ongoing discussions on reducing the inflation target and dozens trapped after an earthquake hits Taiwan. Very good afternoon. Ke Modupima Kgalemele with the news. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says discussions continue about reducing the inflation target. The central bank's target inflation range currently sits between 3 to 6%. Kganyago says reviewing the target range is a long process that involves both the Reserve Bank and the National Treasury team. You are speaking to our news desk in an exclusive interview in Pretoria.
What is in no doubt is that if we have to revise the target can only be revised lower. And the reason is that our inflation target is wider than that of the peer countries and is also on the high side of that of the peer countries. But importantly is that this is work that the Reserve Bank and the Treasury did in 2001.
Well, I've just been handed a piece of paper and it's news just in. It's the Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, has resigned as both the Speaker and as a Member of Parliament with immediate effect. We'll have more on this in our next bulletin. The bodies of 8 of the 45 Botswana nationals who died when a bus plunged into the Mamatlakala Bridge between Mokopane and Marken are ready to be repatriated. This is according to Limpopo Health MEC Popira Matuba. She says they've completed post-mortems on the bodies. The deceased were travelling to a Zion Christian Church Easter service when the crash occurred. Ramatuba says they've now started conducting a series of tests on the remaining bodies that were charred beyond recognition.
We are done with all the postmortems that were scheduled for yesterday for those that are identifiable. We will be guided by the government of Botswana. When do they want those bodies to be repatriated? The ones that will require DNA sampling. We are relying more on Dr. General Moraudzi from South African Police Services, and he has put up a team, and postmortems are being done today for those that are the charred body to get the tissue that will be used for comparison.
Police in KZN have launched a manhunt for 2 suspects who escaped the gun battle in Marion Hill, west of Durban this morning. This comes after a shootout between the police and the other suspects who were wanted in connection with various crimes. 9 suspects were shot and fatally wounded. The suspects were also on the police's radar for serious and violent crimes in their area. Police spokesperson Robert Netsiunda.
When we caught wind of where they were, we operated in the early hours of today. And when we arrived in Marion Hill, Desai, we mistakenly knocked at the wrong house. And the next thing we heard were gunshots coming from the opposite house. That's where our police had to take cover and find a way to return fire. And a gun battle ensued. After that, that's when 9 suspects were shot and fatally wounded. We're initially looking for a group of 11 suspects, but only 9 were found in the house. So that means 2 are still outstanding.
There's growing unhappiness among residents of Makassar outside Cape Town over the alleged relocation of a large group of illegal railway dwellers from Langa, Philippi and Khayelitsha to their area. Ward Councillor Peter Helfrich says Makassar residents are outraged following PRASA's alleged recent confirmation of plans to resettle about 2,000 households from the Central Railway line to private land in their neighborhood. Helfrich says that PRASA is going against the will of the residents.
Residents in Ward 1 and 9 have initiated mobilization efforts in response to PRASA's televised confirmation of their land acquisition plans in Makassar. In addition, a new petition has been launched, garnering no fewer than 4,000 signatures, and is also growing daily. Plans are also in place for a lawful protest to express residents' discontent and vehement opposition to PRASA's proposed action.
And rescuers in Taiwan are attempting to reach dozens of people trapped in road tunnels after a powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake. At least 9 people have been killed and more than 800 others injured. The BBC's Shaima Khalil.
Eyewitness videos have shown extensive damage in Hualien, the city nearest to the quake's epicenter, with some buildings seen leaning at precarious angles. Officials say the damage is making it extremely difficult for rescuers. Local media outlets have shown residents being pulled from their homes. The remote mountainous region in Taiwan's east coast was hit by hundreds of landslides, causing rocks to tumble into the ocean and in valleys, and resulting in some fatalities according to the authorities. Major roads and rail lines connecting Hualien to the rest of Taiwan are now down. Tremors were felt as far away as the capital Taipei, with videos showing buildings shaking violently.
Recapping the top story this hour, the National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, has resigned as both the Speaker and a Member of Parliament with immediate effect. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas women ready for T20 series decider against Sri Lanka tonight. Pirates welcome back 4 of the key players ahead of the Soweto derby against Swallows, and Verstappen aims to bounce back at the Japanese Grand Prix. More details at 5:30.
SAFM guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good afternoon. Top traffic story is the enormous backlog on the R21 running south from Pretoria to the airport. The roadworks today are a little bit further south than what you might be used to. The heaviest restrictions just before the R23 Benoni exit. The traffic is joined up really to the first set of roadworks that you hit before you get to Olifantsfontein. It's a really severe, massive queue, so just make sure you've got plenty of time to get through that and get to the airport on time. The alternative Pretoria road that comes from Tembisa down through Colfontein is also quite busy with diverting pressures as well. The N12, a breakdown of Jet Park Road, so heavy from Edenvale as you line up to Boksburg and the Benoni. And there's a bit of traffic jamming on the N1 South today towards the Rancho Road, very slow passing Soweto. Durban's N3 outbound, still sitting under some pressure between the Spaghetti Junction and the Pavilion Mall exit. In fact, that queue extends right through to the M13 Paradise Valley. A lot of traffic between Klaarwater and Chatsworth, that section of the Higginson Highway or Richmond Road, if you like, under pressure both ways today. Had a crash before the Kwamashu Highway, so the N2 coming through from Schlugger is very heavy. Cape Town, a crash involving a truck and a vehicle on the N2 out of town by Lisbik Parkway. That's causing a massive delay. Nelson Mandela Boulevard and Philip Cassano, those routes out of town through Hospital Bend towards the scene remain under pressure. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Well, there you are. You know, the third half, or the third hour. Did I say third half? The third hour of this show, which is the National Pulse, as we look at issues around the pulse of the nation and what we're feeling right now. And it's interesting, you know, someone told me, well, in fact, management, when we spoke about getting on the show, is like, the show is never going to be chilled out. It's racy, it's spacey, there's breaking stories, there's analysis, there's things that happen in the moment. And I can think about three things. The whole issue about the medical doctors on strike in KZN is one big story. I can think about the conversation that we've just had now around political party funding with Lorenzo Davids. I can think about the upcoming interview coming up just now with Tebe Kalafeng. And there's more. You may have just heard. That's the Speaker of the National Assembly. Well, he's not the Speaker any longer. Nosiviwe Mapisa Nqakula has resigned as the National Assembly Speaker, as well as MP with immediate effect. We'll certainly get a response on that. In fact, we're going to do that right away. My guest is Dr. Levi Indo, who's a political analyst. Dr. Indo, appreciate your time. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the listeners of SAFM. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, whether it's afternoon or evening, the sun has certainly set on, I would take it, the career of the National Assembly or former National Assembly Speaker, right?
Indeed. This is the news that did not come as a surprise. And my sense is that Mapisa Nqakula could have weighed options, and she knew that if she goes to Parliament to face the motion of no confidence, she might not make it, because if indeed the ANC would not be on her side, then indeed she'll be out. So to save the embarrassment, I think this is what she decided to opt for.
Well, I mean, there were two parts. One is going to a vote in Parliament. The other would be obviously her imminent arrest, right?
Indeed. I think she is one person who is under immense pressure. Pressure from the law enforcement agencies, pressure from Parliament, and pressure from a party, the ANC,
which was just waiting for one moment to happen. If she's charged, she must step aside, and indeed, the ANC will not be in any way supporting her in whatever happens thereafter. And now that she's aware, she's not on the list, she's not coming back, I think the best option that she had at her disposal has been to resign and avoid all the other embarrassments if she had chosen not to resign.
Well, when you say it's the best option, is it the only option? I mean, meaning the other options, are they options?
In my view, there wouldn't be other options because she wouldn't have loved to be removed through a vote in Parliament, which, in my view, a party the ANC was also going to support. She would also not love a situation where the ANC will go and make an announcement and say, we have taken a decision that Mapisang Lakula should step aside. And I think the only option she had was to resign. She's aware that even though there is a step aside issue, it won't take prominence, and the motion of no confidence obviously would therefore have to fall off. So she will just have to face a situation in the cold without the ANC, without many other people supporting her, and I don't think this is good news for a person like Mapisang Lakula.
Just so that we can get perspective for those whose memories are not as good as yours, right? What is the issue at stake here with regard to the Speaker?
Well, the expectation indeed would have been that she would firstly behave in a manner that is very much acceptable, in an ethical manner, set example for ordinary citizens, because she's heading the legislative arm of government. At the same time, a party, the ANC, has always been accused for corruption and corrupt activities, and they kept on saying that they are cleaning up all the wrongdoings, and that's why they've come up with different guidelines to deal with wrongdoings within their own ranks.
And she's been accused of what has she been accused of, therefore?
Well, she's being accused of receiving bribes while she was the Minister of Defense. And then there is a list of activities that has happened, and of interest, most of them happened at the Bruma area. And if indeed all these things are proven to be true, she wouldn't have any other option rather than resigning.
Okay. But the key part is if they are proven to be true. In her statement, she's already said it is not an admission of guilt. On the one hand, the ANC itself, as the ruling party, is the history of publicly announcing and pronouncing when any of their leaders are accused of something or they should resign, to say, let the legal situation take its course. So why a shift this time? I know she's resigned, but you're suggesting that she's resigned because she knows she doesn't have the support of the ANC. Why the shift this time round?
Well, what else would citizens and herself expect when she's finding herself in this situation? She has just handed herself to the police, and all other processes are going to follow. Most people talk about the timing of all these issues. The timing, in my view, is bad for Mapisang Lakula. The timing is bad for the ANC. The timing is also bad for governance in South Africa. That you moving towards the end of the administration, and the Speaker of the National Assembly is in trouble similar to this one. On the list of what the ANC members will be campaigning on what they should add, one of those will be Mapisang Lakula resigned on matters related to corruption. What else are you going to do as the party? And I think the party at this stage would want to take a stance that would demonstrate that they do not support any form of corruption, and that is why Mapisang Lakula has to resign, knowing that she will not be getting the support of a party there.
And maybe lastly on this, there's been this common suggestion so often, the problem with South Africa, the country is corrupt, the ruling party is corrupt because they're the incumbents. There's just too many issues around state capture, too many deals being made by high-ranking leaders, and that is why we are where we are as a country, right? In this case here, what message now does this send to the country in terms of dealing with high-ranking officials who are not even guilty of a crime but are accused of it, although evidence may suggest that there's a serious issue there? But what message does this send now to you and I in terms of understanding where the pulse of the nation fits in?
The message that, for me, this matter sends to everyone is that even though we've acknowledged as a country that corruption is a big challenge, we still have individuals and those in high positions who are still practicing it. And my sense is that we need to get the law enforcement agencies, political parties, and other institutions to assist all of us in the fight against corruption, because if we become lenient on corruption and corrupt activities, it might not come to an end.
And lastly, and of course, you're an analyst, so we're speculating. What impact will this have on not just her, but on the ANC leading up to 29th of May?
Well, on the list of the different opposition parties, when they campaign, they should add that the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is a member of the ANC, who has been in government for a very, very long time, has to resign 2 months towards the elections because of corruption or issues associated with corruption. And this is a very good weapon that Mapisang Nakula is giving to the opposition in South Africa.
And do you think they're going to use it? Absolutely, they will use it. There's no question about that. Dr. Levi Ndou, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
You're always welcome. Thank you so much.
There we are. Thank you. I'll tell you what do you make of this turn of events? You can WhatsApp voice note us. I think it's probably the best way. 0614 104 107, or text us as well. Sometimes we battle with time issues, and especially in a breaking story like this, to manage all of that. But I'll try and as much as we can to get it out. You can also tweet it out. Okay, so you can tweet it out to X. Does that make sense? Tweet it out to X. Tag SAFM Radio. Tag me, Ashraf Garda. Do use the hashtag. It's an important one because we'll pick it up all the time. The National Pulse, because that's really what we do on the show. We have a feel on the national pulse. And right now, the national pulse is boiling over because of two issues in particular. One is the doctors, 500 doctors can't get a job in KZN, number one. And number two, the speaker has just resigned. So there are big issues in South Africa. We talk to Tebe Kalafeng right after this.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked scuffing to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Aston Villa have found comfort on the top half, and they want maximum points to retain their decent position.
Put it back, and this time, Zaniolo is on! The equaliser belongs to Aston Villa!
Yet the Bees want to cause havoc and deprive the Villains by registering an away victory.
Wissart tried one of them in the first half, he's finished it in the second, and Brentford have turned this round.
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between Aston Villa FC and Brentford FC on Saturday, 6 April at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
I'll tell you what, since I've started doing the show, many people have said, come on, Ashraf, you need to talk more about marketing and branding as well, because we know you know enough about that. Well, when the opportunities come, we will do just that. I tweeted out to Aaron McQuena the other day to say we need to talk about those things in terms of how people brand themselves. We leave that for a later stage. Tebe Kalafeng, or now, should I say, I've never called you Dr. Tebe Kalafeng before, but I can do so now. Yeah?
Tebe Galafeng.
Not Dr. Tebe Galafeng.
I'm Tebe Galafeng from Kimberley.
There we are. Well, listen, you didn't have a big fuss about being called a doctor a week ago for no reason, right? And that's why we're talking to you. I mean, when it comes to branding in the country, in the continent, if you asked 1,000 people to name the preeminent person, there's no question it's Tebe Galafeng. And that is confirmed, I would think, by the UJ acknowledgement of your work, by granting you that or conferring upon you that honorary doctorate. And that's really why I want to talk to you about it. You know, what happened, how did that come about? And then we'll talk a bit about some of your thoughts on the great work that you've done.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. I was really humbled, obviously. I was humbled to have the honorary doctorate conferred. I mean, it's not something that I left Kimberley in 1986 to come to Johannesburg to come and get. I came to Johannesburg like everybody else in search of brighter lights and to find a career and create a career for myself.
Having said that, things have changed, okay? So perhaps maybe I'll turn this around. In conferring upon you that honorary doctorate, there had to be a citation. What did UJ say about Tebe Galafeng?
I think when I received the letter on the 12th of October last year, they said the Senate and the Council have agreed to confer an honorary doctorate in recognition of my contribution to society and the industry.
Okay, and they probably have to back it up, and maybe you're going to have to back it up as well.
Back it up, right?
Tell us, I mean, so your journey has been quite amazing, and for many people, I mean, we know you, but we have to assume that there are people listening in for the first time that are not aware of what you've done. So, if I may ask you just a 1 minute snapshot journey of Tebe Galafeng from Kimberley to visiting every single country on the African continent. Go ahead and tell us.
I think if I had to sum it up in a sentence, and when people ask me what is it that I do, I said what I do, I'm an advocate for a brand-led African renaissance. I am championing the creation, the consumption, and the celebration of made in Africa brands, because I believe that when we buy, consume, and sell African brands, that's the only way that the continent is going to truly find economic independence, but I think greater independence as well of to be able to do and say and be what it is.
But in and it's certainly we've shared many platforms together, so I'm very well aware of your position on that. But has it worked? That means has your advocacy for pushing up African brands, is it working?
Well, I've traveled the journey in two ways. On the parallel side, I have tried to advocate for Africa as a desirable place, as a place that is equally interesting and beautiful and exciting to visit. I've advocated for the continent as a place that every African should aspire, or anybody outside of the continent should aspire to visit. And if you look at my journeys, for example, I tried to do it through a lens that is authentic, that is real, and that is exciting, because I didn't want to put in a filter on the continent. I didn't want to show myself pictures lying on the beach somewhere in Zanzibar with a glass of champagne, not that I drink anyway, on a glass of champagne, and saying, oh, this is the life. This is Africa, because that is not the 90% of the Africa. I wanted to show them the 90% of the Africa that we all see, but also to celebrate it. So collectively, I try to show brand Africa in a positive light. And when I look at the comments and I read what people say, and they all say to me, oh my goodness, because of you, I started feeling comfortable to travel the continent and not to look at it as a place that's diseased, that's poor, and that's at war. I wanted to, and I wanted to say, I wanted to start dressing the way you do. Because remember I switched from wearing suits only to being very Pan-African. And they said, you gave me the confidence to say that dressing in Africa is as beautiful, as majestic as dressing as the Europeans are in their own dress in their country. So that's the one side of the journey. And on the other side of the journey, the parallel journey. 15 years ago, I initiated the Brand Africa 100 study, which is looking at how the trying to understand, to set a benchmark, a metric of African brands. Because as they say, what gets measured gets done. Because we've not really measured and looked at what other African brands. We just see them, we see MTN here, we see Mpesa here, but we really didn't know how they compete against international brands. And having established that metric, now all of a sudden, everybody is understanding that, so we are only 15% of the brands that Africans admire are only 15% are African. So we actually have quite a job to do. So this does not match. How could you be African, live in Africa, claim to be African, claim to champion Africa when you don't even buy?
So let's pick up on that. I mean, so that's the number, that's the measurement. 15% of brands that Africans admire. You and I and everybody else are from Africa, and the rest are from other parts of the world. Okay, so how much of that is that our brands are A, not good enough, B, not strong enough, C, not visible enough, therefore not branded enough, or is it the fourth one, which is all of the above, with the global brands are so strong that they simply overpower us in a way, like an elephant would overpower even a lion when they're next to each other?
Well, the 85% of the brands that Africans admire, the non-African brands, they've got tenure in the continent. They've been around, like Coca-Cola, around for over 100 years. Standard Chartered, over 100 years. You can name them. They've all been around. They also have scale. So because they are global brands and non-African brands, they are able to leverage the economies of scale but they also have, quote unquote, the skills to build great brands. Now, if you look at the tenure, the scale, and the skills, how does an African brand that just get started yesterday, how does it compete? So if you look at it that way, when it comes to, so your question is it good enough, is it visible enough, is all those things. Well, the global brands do that well because they've got the tenure. They understand us. They invest in research. They've got the scale. They are everywhere you wake up. You find, if you go to your bedroom now, to your bathroom now, and you open the cupboard, you're going to find out that 85% of the brands in your cupboard are made outside of Africa. You're going to find your Colgate. You're going to find your Nivea. You're going to find all those things in your. So this is a very real example. You go to your kitchen. You open your pantry. You're going to find out that the brands in the pantry, most of them don't come from here. So African brands have started on the back foot, but it started on the back foot for a very important insight.
But perhaps, if I can interject, we've got about 30 seconds to go. So we're on the back foot right now. So in 30 seconds, how do we move and make the shift from being from back foot to front foot?
Well, what we need to do is we need to look ourselves in the mirror and realize that we are who we're waiting for. We need to have confidence in who we are as Africans. We need to be authentic, and we need to realize that until we build African brands and consume African brands, we are not going to achieve that which we want to. We call the Uhuru. I think it's Ali Mazrui who said it so beautifully. Africa consumes what it doesn't produce and produces what it doesn't consume. We need to close that gap.
And that's when we have people like Thebe Ikalafeng, or Dr. Thebe Ikalafeng, to remind us what the great Kenyan Ali Mazrui said many, many years ago, and we certainly have not heeded that lesson as yet. Thebe Ikalafeng, appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and well done, and continue to brand Africa in a way that nobody else ever does. So perhaps this is a good example of champion spotting. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Right.
And all the best, and welcome to your new show.
Much appreciated. I'm sure we'll talk much more than today. I have no doubt about that. Just go on 5:31. You know, there's developing stories happening in the country. Madupi has it all.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, has resigned as both the Speaker and as a Member of Parliament with immediate effect. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says discussions continue about reducing the inflation target, and the Iranian ambassador to South Africa has called on the international community to take steps against the suspected Israeli attack on its embassy in Syria. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 6.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still extremely heavily backed up on the R21. This is for motorists moving from Pretoria down towards the airport. The roadworks today have taken a bit of a change. Multiple lanes closed closer to the R23 Benoni exit. The backlog is severe. It's right through, back past Bapfontein, back past the Engen services, and right back past the Olifantsfontein Road. Exit Clayville, deep into Kempton Park, passing Tembisa is a nightmare. The alternative local routes, Pretoria Road and Olifantsfontein around the M1 off-ramp, all heavily congested as motorists try to get through quicker. But the highway and the byways all backed up in that area today. Broken down vehicle on the N12 out towards Boksburg and Benoni by Jet Park Road is cleared. That traffic backlog should start to move through. The N1 running north, quite busy today between Buccleuch and the Samrand exit before you feel like you're out of that. Durban still dealing with an earlier crash between Gateway and Kwamashu, so the N2 going south is heavy. The M13 looks a bit like it should do in the morning. Backlogs from the bottom of Fields Hill all the way through Pinetown down towards the Paradise Valley exit. The M7 is heavy, whether you're Bluff bound or Pinetown bound. Big queues into the Bel Air junction today. And Cape Town, the M5, very slow going south, queues from the Coburg interchange all the way down to Kromboom Road. Northbound is backed up into the Coburg interchange as well. Jake Skirville moving through Goodwood is heavy, and the N2 outbound just queuing past the airport runway towards the R300. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
Right, we've got big news stories today. Can your sport trump the big news stories?
Well, the big news stories is that the Proteas women's are gearing up for the T20 series decider against Sri Lanka in East London tonight, following a win apiece for South Africa and Sri Lanka in the opening two games. It's all to play for today. And Captain Laura Fulvard is expected to be at the helm after recovering from an illness. She missed the second T20 due to an undisclosed illness, and the classy right-hander has trained both days in the build-up to the series decider. So she'll definitely be hoping to perform very well today. In football, there's some DStv Premiership action to look forward to. Original Soweto Derby taking centre stage tonight. Orlando Pirates are away to Swallows at Dobsonville, and the Buccaneers will welcome four key players in Kosinati CBC, Tapelo Koki, Tabang Manare and Patrick Maswangai ahead of the clash. Meanwhile, Swallows will be without striker Gabadinho Mhango, who is ruled out following a yellow card suspension. And Dube Birds head coach Musa Nyantama says that he expects his side to put a fight.
A difficult match ahead of us against Orlando Pirates. They lost yesterday. Watching them, they lost to Skukune, so they will come at us. They will want the maximum points. But we're playing at home. We should be doing. We should be playing well.
Is at 7:30, and there's some other fixtures also. Golden Arrows playing host to SuperSport United, Royal AM away to TS Galaxy, and Chipa United up against Cape Town Spurs. And still staying with the football elsewhere though, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says that he's very excited about being in the hunt to win both the English Premier League and the UEFA Champions League this season, dubbing the upcoming weeks as the most beautiful part of the season. The North London side sit 2 points of league leaders Liverpool, and they face Luton tonight, hoping to claim a much needed 3 points in their title hopes. And then they face Brighton on Saturday before hosting Bayern Munich in next Tuesday's Champions League quarterfinal first leg. So it's not that easy for them.
This is where we want to be, and now we want to take this opportunity and make it happen. And we worked every single day with that enthusiasm and passion to make it happen, and I'm enjoying the moment as well. I see the team really flowing, and they are really excited about playing each game, and that's what has to be drive now this journey to the end.
The team is enjoying the moment. What about the manager?
Yeah, I am as well. I'm very excited. I'm full of energy, and it's the most beautiful part of the season.
Well, in rugby, the Bulls have been hit with a blow with the World Cup winner Marco van der Staden out for this weekend's Investec Champions Cup round of 16 against Lyon. Van Staden injured medial ligaments last Friday, but the initial prognosis has been better than expected. In motorsport, Max Verstappen will aim to bounce back from his poor showing in Australia. With a win at the Japanese Grand Prix, Verstappen retired from a race for the first time in 2 years after a brake issue in Melbourne caused smoke to billow from his Red Bull, and he started the season in typically dominant form, winning in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, while Ferrari toiled behind. Anything's off, then Singapore has ruled out bidding for the 2026 Commonwealth Games as the search for a host continues. The Australian state of Victoria withdrew as the original host in July after rising costs. Malaysia were then offered a chance to host and £100 million to help cover the cost, but they rejected the offer last month. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for SAFM Sport.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, what did the Arsenal guy say? They said it's the most beautiful time of the year. And I remember somebody else saying they call it squeaky bum time, just so you know. Yeah. Interesting one. Okay, let's get to other issues. In fact, let's get to the money markets as we do around this time every day. Do not forget that there's a show coming up after 6. Jimmy Moyahi, you've got the big responsibility of setting the scene for us.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening, Dumi, and good evening to the listeners. Yes, today we're taking a look at a couple of things. We're looking at the latest deal from Liberty Media. They are, of course, the owners of Formula One. They've put in a bid just shy of $4 billion to buy MotoGP from the Canadian company that currently holds the rights to that. We're going to dig into that and try and unpack what that means and what it means for international sports. We're also going to have a conversation with Alan Gray around Eskom and the state of load shedding and whether or not there are brighter days ahead. We've been going through quite a bit of unprecedented times. I'm sure some of us are suffering from PTSD, whether not sure whether load shedding is happening or not happening. But we're going to dig into that with Alan Gray and try and unpack what that all looks like for South Africans. And then we've got a conversation with the FSCA. We do this on a regular basis on every Wednesday, where we speak to the FSCA around their warning Wednesdays and the consumer education that needs to be put out there for financial services. We've definitely seen an increase in the number of scams and attempted scams that have taken place in South Africa, especially where it relates to financial services and the promises of exorbitant returns. So we have partnered with the FSCA to just shed some light on these scams and try and better educate our listeners and better prepare consumers around financial services firms. And then we've got our Executive Lounge feature every Wednesday as well. And on this week's feature, we're chatting to the Chief Executive Officer of the Media Development and Diversity Agency. So lots to look forward to in our show. But before we get to the show, let's do a quick summary of the markets and how they have been performing throughout the day. Joining me to take a look at this is Henku Krier. He keeps an eye on the markets for us throughout the day, and he's going to give us a quick summary of how the markets have performed. Good afternoon, Henku. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. I saw gold futures early this morning in Asian session touching $2,300, and it looks as though the gold price remaining strong today.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Good evening to you and to Ashraf, and good evening to all the listeners. Yes, so the gold price still quite high, and US stocks looking up today and trading in the green, not as red as they were yesterday. We see that the Dow Jones, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq about 0.5% stronger at this stage of the game, but still a long day ahead for them. And then European stocks, they finished quite mixed this afternoon, a short while ago, with the FTSE 100 0.1% weaker, but the DAX and the CAC 40 gaining 0.3% each. Then, unfortunately, the JSE finished lower again today, and it lost 0.45% today and finished at a level of 74,098 points. The industrial index finished 0.4% down. The financial index lost 1.1%, but the resources index, much like yesterday, tried to make up for this, but only 0.5% stronger at the end of the day. Glencore, another great day, 2.5% up. Richmond, 2% stronger, and Anglo gained 0.7%. But AB InBev and Standard Bank each lost 1%, and British American Tobacco finished the day 1.5% weaker. Back to some good news. Another great day for DRD Gold and Thungela. They each gained 2.5%. We also see that SPAR and the MultiChoice Group each finished 2% stronger, and Tsogosan, Harmony and Anglo Gold each 1.5% up at the end of the day. On the negative side of things, Sanlam lost 5.5% today ARM, Italtile and Kumba each 4% weaker, and Mondi and Montauk Renewable Energy finished the day 3.5% down. Then on the commodities market, like you said, gold price is still sky high, now sitting at $2,281 an ounce. Silver trading at $26.76. Platinum is $932 and palladium $1,012. The price of Brent crude also, unfortunately, still very high, almost $90 a barrel, now sitting at exactly $89.70 a barrel. Then if we move across to the exchange rate, you'll pay 18 Rand 70 for a US dollar, 23 Rand 60 for a pound, 20 Rand 26 for a euro, and 12 Rand and 26 cents for an Australian dollar. Bitcoin still maintaining its level of $66,720, and that's 1,285,000 Rand. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed this afternoon.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. We're going to dig into these and other market stories when we come back. I'm going to be looking at the likes of Transaction Capital, which gave us a confirmation that we're likely to see that listing of We Buy Cars next week, Thursday. They finalized the raise around that and the conditions around that. So we're going to dig into that and other stories when we come back just after 6. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.7 FM in Cape Town.
And whether the markets will shift with regard to a significant resignation that's just taken place in Parliament. We shall see about that. To all of that coming up after 6. By the way, I'm going to read out your voice notes and text messages just now. But you need to be aware of this, right? It's time to showcase the vibrant tapestry of KwaZulu-Natal's cultural heritage at the Simon Mabunu Sabela KZN Film and Television Awards, South Africa's ultimate celebration of cinematic excellence. So in partnership with the SABC and the KZN EDTEA, we champion innovation, paving the way for the future of cinema. And this year we go beyond imagination. Now, if you need to know more, go to the website kznfilm.coza. You got that? kznfilm.coza. Or you can also connect on various social media platforms. KZN Film, our kingdom is your stage.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, I've asked you to send out some. First of all, I love the pictures. I love the pictures that you're sending from around the country. And first prize are pictures with the lock next to the SAFM dial that says, "Hey, you're listening to the show," which is even greater. But either way. Okay, still love the fact that you're listening and you're engaging with me. And do not forget the hashtag we use, which is the name of the show, the National Pulse. And there's so much that's getting the pulse moving and boiling right now. Goodness, man. Okay, in terms of listening, so I'm not sure who the sent it. There's this picture from Seshego in Zone 2, but you don't have a name here, which is a pity because I'd love to announce that name. There's Tafara saying, Ashraf, firstly, I think maybe we should all have a discussion on whether words such as our expressions with words like monkey, baboon, etc. can be used to describe anyone's behavior in this country. Secondly, I think because they don't have any fresh ideas to offer, the ANC Youth League is just trying to find relevance during this campaign period. Referring to the issues of technology, of course, I'm just paraphrasing. I think the reality is that and the ANC Youth League and its allies don't seem to be aware of that there's much less unemployment in the advanced countries that adopt the latest technologies than those that resist it. Very interesting point. Another one saying, don't forget the monkey issue, the racist of the DA member calling someone with monkey, don't forget that. Mariette in the beautiful Karoo, the green Karoo, has sent the picture, acknowledged Mariette. And another one, Mike Nomtoto from the Eastern Cape. Welcome to the leading radio station. Love your picture as well, Mike. I'm looking at it's a white shirt with I like that trimming there, by the way. Turquoise and gold, if I've got that right. Is there a story behind that trimming? You can maybe tell us about that. Okay, let's see if there's some more, because there are clearly a few other pictures and messages I may have not seen early on. And apologies when I sometimes don't get a chance, but when you have breaking stories, we do have to balance it out. Okay, there's some more that we'll pick up early on. Now, let's get to the issue around the medical doctors in KwaZulu-Natal. You know the number, we spoke about it earlier on. 500 or so medical doctors in KwaZulu-Natal cannot get a job in that region at a time when the claim is that many of the hospitals in that region are understaffed. They need those medical doctors. The reason they can't is, the point one is, there's a financial issue in the ministry, be it the Ministry of Health nationwide or in KwaZulu-Natal, simply cannot afford to pay them. Or so we've been told. Is there more to that? Now, we were hoping to chat to the MEC for Health in KwaZulu-Natal, but Nomagugu Simelane is not available at the moment because of taking a flight. But what she has done is she sent us a voice note. It's about a 5-minute voice note expressing her thoughts and her points of view on a series of issues relating to the doctors that are unemployed. Have a listen.
We noticed yesterday that during the day there was a march that was going, or a sit-in that had been planned at the Natalia building, which is our head offices. I must firstly indicate that as a department we were not aware of that particular sit-in, and therefore neither myself nor the HOD could actually be in the building at the time when they arrived, and therefore could not be addressed. And as a result, HOD tried to engage with the leaders of the unemployed doctors to try and see if they can have a virtual meeting yesterday at 6, and I think the leaders decided against that, and it was agreed between the HOD and the leaders that the meeting will actually take place this morning. It is unfortunate that after that agreement, some of the doctors or some of the unemployed doctors decided to stage a sit-in outside our buildings, and that is very unfortunate, primarily because it's not safe. I mean, you can't have women sitting outside throughout the night. However, that is water under the bridge, and we really just make a call that we don't believe that is how we should be negotiating with each other, and we should be able to actually stick to agreements that have been made. With that said, the meeting did take place this morning between the head of department and the unemployed doctors. I firstly want to accept and appreciate the fact that in the Department of Health we do have vacancies that have not been filled. Now, those vacancies are available. Those vacancies are in almost all our facilities. Unfortunately, as a department and as a province, not just the Department of Health, as a province, because of the different budgetary constraints that we face, we are unable to fill all our posts at the level that we would wish to actually fill them. So that means we are only able to fill a post that actually has funds. We have been engaging with the National Department. Premier has been talking to the President on our behalf. I've been talking to the National Minister. MEC Nkonyeni, who is MEC for Finance, has been talking to Minister for Finance at a national level, so that we are able to actually get the funding for those vacant posts. That process has not been completed. Yes, the funding, the MTEF, we have been provided with some funds, but those funds are not for unemployed doctors. Those funds were meant to deal with the wage bill that was agreed upon last year. So for this particular financial year, we still don't have the funds that are required. This is a discussion that the National Minister is continuing to have with the President and the National Minister of Finance. With that said, I want to make a commitment that when we are able to advertise posts, and I think there will be some posts that are going to be advertised now in April, hence it's the 1st of April. All our doctors, bursary funded or not, will be requested to apply. Every civil servant has to go through a process of application, of interviews, and then you are allocated. You cannot just be given an appointment letter. You do have to go through the process, and these particular unemployed doctors, we are requesting them to actually do the same. HOD indicated this when he was engaging with these doctors. The only agreement and the only thing that we can do at our level at this point, and we've agreed with management that we are going to do, is that we will centralize the employment of doctors, because as the situation stands currently, doctors are employed in each facility. In other words, each and every hospital is at their own accord given the right to actually advertise for vacancies for doctors and run the process and appoint. So what we have decided to do, just so that we make sure that there are no vacancies that actually are funded but are not filled, we will take the process, centralize it, but it does not mean we have the right to short-circuit the process. So we are making a call and we are making a request to the unemployed doctors that now that we've agreed, we will be advertising, can they please go back home and make sure that they apply as they should apply, and those that are found to be qualifying will definitely be employed. And those that are unable to be employed, I think the national government is also going to be advertising a number of posts, and they are welcome to apply in other provinces as well.
And that is the KZN MEC for Health. That's Nomagugu Simelane, right? Let's move on to the other big breaking story. You may have heard about it, of a significant move with the speaker in the Assembly Speaker resigning today. We do have on the line with us the DA Chief Whip and MP Siviwe Kwarube on the line. Thank you for your time and much appreciate you joining us at very short notice.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. So quickly, I mean, this is a significant position where this of this resignation, right? What do you make of it? How do you interpret it from a DA point of view?
Look, we firstly welcome the resignation of Miss Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, because we are of the view that she was no longer suited to hold the position of the Speaker of the NA. And you will recall last week we called for her resignation, and when it was clear that she was digging in her heels and was not prepared to resign, we tabled a motion of no confidence. I tabled a motion of no confidence against her. And so for us, this was the intended outcome, because we believe that the sanctity and the reputation of Parliament was at risk under her leadership, and that we must also hold our very own to account when they have been accused or are facing such serious allegations. And
okay.
So we welcome
now, with her having resigned, how does that change your position regarding that motion of no confidence?
So, of course, Ashraf, what will happen is that the motion of no confidence only applies to somebody who's occupying the position, and so it will have to fall away, including the Ethics Committee investigation, which was looking into this matter. However, I do want to remind the listeners that we had also tabled a complaint against the Speaker and the Chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. Masondo, in relation to the salary hike of the Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Polele George. And that does not fall away, because remember that a contravention of the Powers and Privileges Act is still applying to somebody who's an ordinary citizen. So we call upon law enforcement and for Parliament's Powers and Privileges Committee to pursue this so that we can really have accountability.
Okay. I know you need to go. Last thing, I mean, I would take it you do feel vindicated, but very importantly, what message now has this resignation? What does it send to every one of us in South Africa?
Look, of course, there is a vindication, except, I think it comes with the caveat, and that caveat is the pursuit for reinstilling the culture of accountability in South Africa, particularly in public office, is still far from over. There is still very much a lot of work to do. A lot of South Africans look to us as leaders, and political leaders in particular, and they believe that we conduct ourselves as being above the law, as being people who should not be held accountable. That needs to change. We are public servants. And therefore, when we are not the ones who are upholding the principles of accountability and transparency, then we must be held to account.
Okay.
And so for us, this is a good step in a victory for Parliament and a victory for accountability.
All right. And I know you need to go, so we agreed on that. So let me do what I'm supposed to do and let you go and wave you goodbye. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
That's Siviwe Kwarube, the DA Chief Whip and Member of Parliament, responding to that significant resignation of the Speaker of Parliament after they had pushed for the tabling of a vote of no confidence as well with her. So there's huge issues there. I'll tell you what, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes to go. There's been many voice notes. Yes, I think I should take those voice notes because I'm sure you have lots to say that you want to get off your chest. Perhaps get a sense of what you're feeling in terms of where the national pulse really is. So here it is.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Salim from Durban. You know, when one look at the earthquake, if you look at Thailand, 9 people died. Not so long ago, earthquake in Turkey, 50,000 people died. In Syria, they had earthquake, large number of people died. Pakistan, Afghanistan, so many people are dying. But when earthquakes are taking place in certain countries like China and other developed countries, Italy, we find that the death is low simply because of the engineering. There's good engineering, and also there's very skilled and disciplined and, you know, a skilled workforce that is building. So therefore, you get lower, you know, deaths in these countries.
Point well made, Salim. In fact, we had a chat about that earlier on this afternoon. Maybe check out the podcast around that in terms of how much they've spent on ensuring there's like an elasticity around their buildings. Okay, here's more.
Hi, Ashraf and your team. To the unemployed doctors, hold on there, people. Just hold it there. March 29 is the date. We are removing the ANC. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you said March 29. No, May 29. But anyway, maybe you want to do it even quicker than I thought, right? Let's get another.
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's Zanele in Durban. So if government don't have the money to pay the doctors services, they must close their school medicine. They must just close them. There's no use for children to go there and spend 7 years, spend 5 years, whilst at the end of the day they are not going to get some job. They must close those school medicine. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's a good point. I mean, you know, do you create more medical doctors when you actually cannot place them at all? Or is there a solution to that? Let's hear another.
Yeah, you know, some time back I started seeing these machines at KFC and McDonald's outlets, and I'd be so frustrated when even the staff would encourage me to use this thing. And I've made a decision, and even a few friends of mine have decided that we're not going to participate in this. We don't want to use them, and hopefully there are many more people in the country that feel the same way and are doing the same thing to show these multinationals that such developments will not work in South Africa, because we are trying to protect the jobs of those 1 or 2 cashiers in the front. Being able to order my own burger at KFC or McDonald's has nothing to do with how South Africa will develop in the 4th Industrial Revolution.
And I'm about to break my fast and you're getting me hungry with KFC and McDonald's and all that sort of thing. But the key point made, we couldn't play all the other voice notes. We'll maybe try and do that tomorrow. My apologies for that. Fascinating. I want your thoughts. I want your input. And the best way to do that still, perhaps you can just tweet us. So, you know, access via, you know, with Twitter, tag SAFM Radio, tag me, Ashraf Garda. I'd love to get your engagement. Use that hashtag, the National Pulse, and give us a sense of what exactly you are feeling, right? Now, as far as the parting shot is concerned, today we sign off with the powerful words of Kenya's first president, Jomo Kenyatta, who said, "Our children may learn about the heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves the architects of the future." Certainly got that. Talking about architects, it starts with ensuring there's wealth and there's growth and there's money that we have, and that means the money market update coming up with Jimmy Moya is particularly important. That comes some of the other side of the news. First now, the news at 6.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top stories at 6 o'clock. Mapisa Nqakula calls it quits and ongoing discussions on reducing the inflation target. Very good evening. We start with this news just in. It's emerged that the former National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa Nqakula, has also resigned from the ANC after more than 30 years of service. This after she resigned